Please let the record reflect that it is 6 p.m. And for everyone's safety, we respectfully ask that no one approach the dais during the meeting, during a recess, or after the meeting adjourns. This includes walking past the podium. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Cartwright School District is located on the ancestral homelands of the Hohokam, Akimio Odom, and Odom Jude people, ancestors of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, or otherwise known as SRP MIC. We acknowledge the rich oral history, culture of these communities, and their ancestral ties to the land. And moving on to item number 5, the adoption of the agenda. I move that we adopt the agenda for
Excuse
the
me,
June
point of
24th,
order. I have a
2026
question.
public hearing, regular governing board meeting.
Before you adopt the agenda, I do have a question.
I've got a motion on the table.
Right.
Let me finish the motion. So
Before you second, do not second the agenda until I've spoken, please. That's why I'm asking. For
I'm
a
the
point of order.
facilitator
For
of
a
the
point of
meeting.
order.
I'm
I
the
second.
facilitator. I
Right.
started the motion. The motion's on the table. Do I have a second?
No, second.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Now you had a question, Ms. Garcia.
I do. The concern prior to accepting or adopting the agenda is what I've noticed after going through this agenda is that everything I've asked for in previous future agenda items, nothing has been presented or in production of the, for example, the budget, and then there's the consultants and the money that they are receiving on a monthly basis. So I've asked for all these things and more, and nothing has been on the agenda that I've asked for. So my question is there a new process? Does this apply to all governing board members? I mean, across the state, or is it really just me? My second concern is that I noticed every board
Can you please?
every board meeting there is a voucher that is missing. For example, this one, it's 1192 that's missing. Is there a reason for that?
Ms. Garcia, there's a motion on the table right now to discuss, to stick to the agenda. We've had parliamentary procedures trainings over and over. This portion of it's just simply to adopt. So if you're speaking, I allowed the conversation because I thought you had questions specifically to this agenda.
That dealt exactly
The
with the
adoption.
agenda, which is why I questioned it prior to the adoption of the agenda so that these concerns can be addressed.
If it's not adopted, we don't discuss it.
Well,
So
it's been
it's not
over a
adopted.
year. It's been over a year. So I'm just wondering, prior to the adoption of the agenda, will any of the items that I have requested for future agenda items ever be on an agenda? Because it's not here. That's the concern. In addition to, once again, voucher missing, 1192. At every meeting, there's a voucher missing, and I can only wonder why. Why would that be? You may continue.
I facilitate the agenda and the discussion. And Ms. Cantu, you did second, so I will proceed to a roll call vote. Ms. Cantu, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Ms. Jennifer Romero, how do you vote?
I will abstain.
I'm sorry?
I will abstain.
Okay, an abstention. And Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
Thank you, Madam President. I vote aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
I'd like to explain my vote. Due to the lack of transparency and ethical practices regarding the agenda, the future requested items that I have been requesting for over a year, along with missing vouchers, and this last one that's missing, 1192, I vote nay.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. And I will explain my vote. Questions regarding the agenda, regarding the budget specifically, can and will be addressed on the agenda, and there will be a presentation with that. So during that same, we've had, I believe, the last 3 meetings, repeatedly, we've been revising the proposed agenda items. You have not been present at 2 of those meetings. You're here in the third one. So hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions when we do the budget presentation for yet the third time. So it's not like things have not been responded to. We have. You just haven't been present.
Excuse me, but
And I vote aye, and
okay,
motion carries.
and that's fine, but I have requested the budget, and Dr. Etheridge, Derek, has presented outdated information that I requested to be updated and have yet to see it.
Moving forward, I'm going to the, Cartwright School District number 83. The Award of Excellence, Mr. Victor Hugo Rodriguez.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Barrantes, governing board members, the executive team, and everyone joining us both in person and via YouTube. Today, we're honored to give the Award of Excellence to the Irigoyen Castillo family, especially Ms. Gladys and Juan, her husband. They are the parents of Abigail. She recently graduated from Trevor Brown. She received about $2 million in scholarships to go to Colgate University. This is Abigail, who's also joining us here with her family. And this is her standing in front of her class. She was the valedictorian. And this is a family of legacy. There are we have Abigail, we have Juan, who's a junior at Stanford University. He received $5 million in scholarships. And then we also have Stephanie. She graduated from Arizona State University, and she's a teacher at Starlight Park. So this was a good way for her to come back and pay forward to empower all of those students that she was able to leave behind. So this is really a family, and we also have the 2 younger sisters who also attended Starlight and Estrella. And the power of parent involvement. When you ask the Gladys, just by talking to Gladys, and when I asked her, the key to her success to be able to get her kids to go to college, and these are some of the things that she said. Just the consistent presence, and up until now, she's been volunteering at Starlight, and you see her at Estrella, even though her kids are grown and they're in high school, the 2 younger ones, and also the importance of building relationships. Volunteering, getting to know the teacher, and as you can see, the results are great. She was able to build a culture of excellence, and she has done a wonderful job, raising those 3 kids who are doing great and who are doing great things for the community. So it's really an honor. This is really a testament of the hard work and support of parents who had been deeply involved in education. So it's really an honor for us to honor the Irigoyen family for their dedication in academic excellence, and also they're also an inspiration to all of us. So please welcome the Irigoyen family. She's going to keep a few words. We're going to have Ms. Gladys.
Primero que nada, quiero decirles gracias por este reconocimiento y decirles que realmente yo me siento muy orgullosa de nuestra comunidad y es lo que he hecho, tratar de transmitirle a mis hijos. Sí.
First of all, she's very grateful for everything that that has happened with her kids, and she wants to thank the community and
Continuing both.
sigue adelante, que se fue.
Sí, y básicamente lo que quiero darles a saber que la educación es muy importante para mí y es como una oportunidad para mis hijos para que salgan adelante y regresen a nuestra comunidad a aportar.
She was saying that she values education. For her, education is very important, and this is really a good way for her children to pay back, to pay forward to the community that has given them so much.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for this award. I'm very happy to receive it, especially for like my family and for my parents to also get this recognition, as this wasn't just because of me. Like it was a community who came together, like all my teachers who have helped me in the Cartwright School District, especially like in middle school and elementary school and in high school, my friends, my family, especially like my parents and my brother who have helped me and my success. Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
I wouldn't be here without my parents always supporting me, always putting into my head that education is the most important thing. And that's all they ever wanted for me, just to go to school and do my best. And that's what I did. And I decided to become a teacher just to give back. And really, it's just because my parents always push education. And I'm glad to see my sister succeeding and my brother.
Thank you.
So we're gonna ask our board members and superintendent to join us here.
Le repito que es un gran honor y un orgullo que estén aquí con nosotros. Gracias por su gran labor y su trabajo con su familia. Siempre cuando hablamos nosotros de aquí, especialmente llevo más de 30 años en esta vecindad y es importante que nuestra gente vea, ustedes sirven como un ejemplo, un gran ejemplo de del talento que tienen nuestros niños en nuestras comunidades. So, gracias por estar con nosotros hoy. I just thank them for her work with their family. I'm honored to have them here. And as we always take the opportunity to speak from the dais here, how important it is and how we recognize the talent that we have in our communities. So we're just trying to do the best job to make sure that they have the tools that they need, at least from Cartwright. So thank you.
Madam
Cantu.
President, if I may.
Oh, Ms. Hernandez, yes.
Sorry, and thank you. I just want to take the opportunity. Hello, everyone. This is Board Member Ms. Hernandez. Muchas gracias a los padres. Thank you very much. Quería nomás decir que Muchas gracias por su dedicación a sus hijos. Ustedes son un gran parte de lo que hacemos aquí en nuestra comunidad. You guys are the exact example. I want to echo what, President Hernandez had mentioned. I'm so proud it's really important to be able to acknowledge the beauty in this district and to find, for each of one of you guys, it's so inspiring. Thank you for just being you and going above and beyond. You are a great representation of this community. I just want to congratulate you guys. When you guys achieve great things, it not only, you bring all of us along with you. So thank you for the dedication to yourself and para los padres, la dedicación a tu familia es muy importante. This is the outcome of just that. So thank you guys very much for being here today, and thank you for having us being a part of this milestone for you guys. I'm very excited for the future for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Cantu, I think Ms. Cantu.
Yeah, Madam President, Dr. Barrantes, members of the board. Solo quiero mencionar a la familia Irigoyen, son un ejemplo de esta comunidad. Y no me quiero poner emocional porque ya lo hice la junta pasada, pero cuando los niños de Cartwright alcanzan estos niveles educativos, es para mí un orgullo muy grande, porque es a lo que yo me he dedicado la mayor parte de mi vida. Y cuando sus hijos tienen éxito, el éxito es para los padres también, para nosotros. Y veo a sus hijos reflejados en los míos y puedo entender que no ha sido en balde mi trabajo de todos estos años. Y le quiero dar gracias, señora, por seguir envuelta en la educación de sus hijos, por seguir siendo presente en lo más importante que tenemos, que son nuestros hijos. Gracias.
Thank you. And we're moving on to the public hearing, the 26-27 annual expenditure budget and 2026-2027 desegregation budget. Dr. Etheridge. Oh, before moving on, I want to explain that also after the presentation. So this is required by law. I know that we've previously presented. We've made some revisions. There's an opportunity, and we're required, and it's open to the public so that the public is aware of the budget and is able to ask their questions. Dr. Etheridge.
Yeah, Madam President, governing board members, as you stated, so this is the public hearing portion of the FY27 budget adoption. At the last board meeting, we proposed the budget so that the public could view it, could look at it, and then come to the public hearing with any questions or concerns that they have. So jumping right into that, there's a couple things as we go through the budget that I always like to clarify for people. The first one is the idea that we as a governmental agency, we use fund accounting. So what that means is that we have different buckets of money used for different purposes. And there are a few rare circumstances that we can move money from one bucket to another. So I like to clarify that because oftentimes people think we just get one large sum of money and we determine how we spend it. But we get different buckets of money, and each of those has a different purpose for that. So for example, maintenance and operations fund, that's used for our daily operating expenses such as salaries, benefits, utilities, consumable supplies, those types of purchases. District additional assistance, which we generally refer to as capital, that's used for those larger purchases, building, land improvements, furnitures, equipment, vehicles, technology. Classroom site fund is another pot of money that we receive, and that's dedicated for compensation increases, class size reduction, performance pay. Bond funds, again, as we know, are for those large-scale capital projects. And adjacent ways funds, those are used for ingress and egress of campuses. So if we have, problems with picking up and dropping off kids, we could use adjacent ways funds to kind of, build some different driveways and things like that. So those are the ideas of the different funds. Those are the major funds. We have about 100 different funds. We aren't going to go through all of them, but the idea, again, just keeping in mind that there's separate funds. And these funds are broken up into budget-controlled funds and cash-controlled funds. Budget-controlled funds are determined by some formula, whether that's the state government, federal government. They're determined by some formula. And that tells us what our budget is, how much we can spend, regardless of how much cash we have in the bank. And if you think about it, that makes sense. If our budget is, and I'm going to say $100 million, and some of that comes from state aid, some of that comes from tax collections, well, there's some people that may not pay the property taxes. There may be, some different reasons why the cash doesn't necessarily match the budget. But the idea is that we can spend up to that budget amount. The examples of these funds are things like M&O, the Capital, Classroom Site Fund, and most federal and state grants are budget controlled. On the flip side of that, we have cash controlled funds, and those we don't really have. The budget is the amount of cash that we have in the bank. Things like gifts and donations, we don't know how much we're going to, people are going to donate to us. So we don't create a budget for that per se. It's how much cash we bring in from those donations. That's how much we can ultimately spend on that. As we know, the majority of our funding, when we look at kind of what drives our funding, it is average daily membership, okay, which is correlated to student enrollment. It's slightly different though, okay? So as I've explained in the past, enrollment is kind of a point in time. So we can look at whatever day we want. Let's say 100th day enrollment. Here's how many kids we have enrolled in our schools. And that's going to be your red line. Under that, the yellow line, that is the average daily membership, and that is actually how we're funded as a school district. As you can see, the average daily membership is always smaller than the student enrollment. That is because the average daily membership is a calculation over time. So when you take a look at the first 100 days of school, if I'm a student that's been enrolled on the first day consecutively through the 100th day, I count as one ADM because I've been in school 100% of those days. If I don't come, though, until the 50th day of school, and I'm only in school from the 51st day to the 100th day, I'm only going to count as a 0.5 because I've only been in school 50% of those first 100 days. The caveat to this in a district like ours where we have kindergarten is that the state only funds the kindergarten at half time. So even kindergarten students who show up on the first day of school, consecutively enrolled through the 100th day of school, they're still only going to count as 0.5 because that's the amount of funding that we receive for kinder students. So when we talk about, trying to get full day funding for kindergarten, that's what we're talking about, is counting them as a 1 ADM if they're here for those first 100 days. But as you can see, our enrollment continues to go down. That is going to be, unfortunately, a trend that we will continue to see. We did some demographic studies, and we'll continue to lose student enrollment, at least over the next 10 years that our study has shown. There's a variety of reasons for this. The major reason is that the birth rates are low. So as we think about it, the number of 8th graders that leave our school district is greater than the number of kindergartners coming into our school district. So right then and there, we lose student enrollment. The other piece to that is just increased competition. So first, it used to be charter schools that we were always concerned about. Well, interestingly enough, charter schools are actually beginning to lose enrollment. And part of that is coming from, again, the low birth rates, but it coming from just increased competition with things like ESAs and those types of things. So those are all contributing to the decrease. We are a district where we're pretty landlocked and we're pretty built out. So we don't have a lot of new buildings coming in. Pena, over in that area, there are a few, apartment complexes going up. And of course, that's the school where we see enrollment actually increasing versus the others that are decreasing. So that's the trend, and we just have to make sure that we plan for it. And in this budget, you'll see that we have planned for that, and we're looking good, assuming that those number of kids show up in August. One of the challenges as we get into our M&O funding, one of the challenges is when we look at average daily membership, it's average daily membership for the current year. So I don't know the exact budget amount until the 100th day of next year. So February of 2027 is when I'll be able to see what the exact budget amount is. We get reports monthly to kind of see how many students we have and what our trend is. So we know and we can anticipate. But as we're proposing and adopting this budget, it really is just a best guess based on demographic studies, historical data, where we're determining what is our average daily membership going to look like in August, and then throughout the first 100 days to determine what that budget looks like. So taking a look at the components that make up the maintenance and operations budget, we can see that our average daily membership for FY26 was 11,633. I'm anticipating a decrease of about 550. Average daily membership comes to about 300 to 400 students. And so, of course, that drives the budget. In the formula to calculate for maintenance and operations, there is a weight. So we multiply that amount by a weighted factor to get what we call the weighted ADM. And so when we look at our weighted ADM, that's going to decrease, I expect, by about 650. And then we have a Group B ADM. And Group B weights is the state understands that there are certain subgroups of students that need some additional resources in order to be successful. English language learners, free and reduced price lunch, special education, those are all counted in that Group B weight. So we do get some additional funding to provide additional resources to those students. And so when we take a look at what that Group B weight, what I anticipate is that that's going to decrease by about 121 ADM. I actually think that's being a little bit conservative. I actually think we're seeing our populations, our special populations actually increase. So like the number of students enrolled in special ed actually has increased this year. So we actually may see an increase in our Group B ADM. But again, just to be conservative, I budgeted for a slight decrease there. But that gives what our total weighted ADM is, which is a difference of about 770. So when we take a look at what that funding is, the base support level is what we multiply that total weighted ADM by. And the base support level is saying, okay, per ADM, here's how much the state is going to fund. And so last year, in FY26, last year was 5,113. By statute, that increases by 2%, or the amount of inflation, whichever is lesser. Since inflation is over 2%, they gave us a bump of 2% increase. Now, remember, when we proposed this budget, that was what we anticipated, but at that time, the state had not passed the budget. So now they have, and now that is in statute. So we do know that 2% is coming. The state also recognizes that, as most salary schedules across the state, the more experience that you have, the higher your salary is going to be. And so they wanted to make sure that we didn't have districts out there that were trying to purposely get rid of experienced teachers to bring in new teachers because it was cheaper. So what the state did is they created this, what's called Teacher Experience Index, TEI. And what that does is that takes a look at the state average. And if your teacher experience on average is greater than the state average, they give you a multiplier that's a little bit higher than 1. If it's less than the state average or equal to the state average, it's 1. So when we take a look at this teacher experience index of 1.03, that means the average experience of our teachers is greater than the state average, which means we have more experienced teachers here in Cartwright. So taking a look at that base support level of 5,216 multiplied by our total weighted ADM, 16,368, multiplied by that teacher experience index, gives us kind of a pre-adjusted base support level of about $88 million. The state does fund, we're required to have an annual audit every year. The state does provide that into our allocation of about $49,000. They also provide some additional funding for transportation, knowing that we have to transport students. So that revenue control limit actually stays the same because even though the support level increased, the revenue control limit is higher than what our support level would be. So that's why we take the higher amount of that, and it stayed the same from last year. But that gives a total revenue control limit for this year of about $89.4 million. Okay, so the state formula is saying that we're going to get about $89.4 million. That is a decrease of about $1.9 million over what we budgeted for last year in FY26. But there are a couple things that we add into that budget. So when we take a look at that total revenue control limit of $89.4 million, we have that override amount, and that override amount is about $14 million. That gets added into our M&O funds. And just a reminder, we're going out for an override in November. As a reminder of what that is, that's the district, the state is saying you can spend $89.4 million, and the local taxpayers have voted for the override to say we can spend 15% above that, but that is 100% funded by the taxpayers, whereas that revenue control limit is partially funded by the taxpayers, local taxpayers, partially funded by the state general fund. The DSEG amount that comes from decades ago, that kind of carried over. That amount is provided to us to ensure that we are, continue to desegregate our schools. So we generally use that for our EL population, ensuring that they're receiving the instruction to achieve at high academic levels as well. That's about $4.6 million. The transfer to energy and water savings, as a reminder, we have a lease agreement right now currently going on, and we are paying annually, actually every 6 months, towards that lease purchase agreement. And the idea is that with the solars and the lights and the water, the savings project, the savings would come from M&O, but it's a capital project. So this is one of those instances where they allow us to move some of that M&O funding over to this lease purchase agreement, the Energy and Water Savings Funds, to pay off that lease purchase agreement. So for this next year in FY27, the amount due on that is close to $2 million. That leaves us with a total M&O allocation of about $106 million that we can spend in FY27. Now, we do have the carry forward amount. That's kind of our bank account, if you will. Right now, I anticipate about $12.9 million in that carryover fund. I do still expect that to increase as I'm looking at the numbers as we're closing out the year. We won't know that exact number until after August, when all the bills are paid from this current year. But looking at that amount, I anticipate that this actually at a budget revision will be a little bit higher than what that is right now. But overall, that means the total available M&O funds is about $119 million. Looking at that compared to this past year, it's about $500,000, about $500,000 less than what we have for this current year. So let's talk a little bit then about expenditures and how we make sure we want to balance that budget. So the FY27 budget, that $106 million, again, when I give these presentations and we look at balancing the budget, I exclude the carryover amount because that's the savings account. That would be used, a great example of what that would be used for is we planned for those 11,075 average daily membership. In August, maybe 200 kids less show up. That's what the idea of the carryover amount is for, is that we have that cushion in case something like that happens, we're able to continue on with operations as is. Our FY26 expenditures was about $104.6 million. Staffing to standard, meaning just taking a look at that decrease in student enrollment and aligning the number of teacher positions that we have to that decreased about 20 teacher positions for about a $1.5 million savings. The 5-day week, when we look at salaries, utilities, fuel, those kind of things, that will increase our cost by about $2.1 million in M&O. We did provide the step salary increases for ESPs and admin, so that was moving down the step on the salary schedule, cost about $600,000 more than current year, or FY26. Then we provided ESP raises on top of that, with that embedded in the salary schedule, 2% to each cell. That's about $440,000 cost. The admin restructure, so I'm talking the executive team, some of those executive directors, things like that, that's a savings of about $300,000. So overall, when we take a look at all of those things, we're looking at a surplus in our budget of about $61,000. Now, the good news with this is between the proposed budget and the adopted budget, the state did pass a budget, and within that budget, there were some things that we didn't account for in here to be conservative in case it didn't pass. Things like additional state aid, the free and reduced price lunch one-time add-on, the DAA additional one-time add-on. Those types of things were passed in the state budget that are not included in this budget. So when we bring back the revision in September, we'll get to include those things. And for our district, it's about $1.6 million in additional money. So that, again, is kind of one of those things, along with carryover, is we'll see how many kids actually show up to see if it's budgeted for. If the number of kids that we budget for show up, wonderful. That's the money that we can kind of play with and determine how we allocate that. If less kids show up, that will help buffer that impact if those kids show up. So it's nice to have that going into the year. Taking a look at our capital fund is a little bit easier to budget for because capital fund is based on prior year ADM. So we take a look at what our FY26 ADM is. We multiply that by what we receive, our funding per pupil, which is about $550, gives us our base allocation of about $6.4 million. That's a little bit less than what we had for this past year for FY26, which we expect, obviously, because the average daily membership went down. The interest earnings, this is one fund, unlike the M&O fund. The capital fund, we actually can add the interest we earn on the cash that's in the bank. We can add that to our budget capacity. We cannot do that in M&O, but we can in capital. So that's about $250,000 in additional money. Brings our total allocation for this current year to about $6.6 million, but we do have that $15 million carry forward in kind of that savings account. So our total available capital funds, about almost $22 million. That is a difference of about $1.8 million from what we had in this past year to do that. So just something as we keep in mind for capital funds. Obviously, this is not as big of a fund as M&O. So obviously something we want to be very careful with as we move forward. But this is what's used for our major projects and billings and operations and things like that. So let's take a look at the expenditures there. So again, that FY27 budget, about $6.6 million. The expenditures we currently have in FY26 are about $8 million. However, remember we did a textbook adoption, which was about $4.2 million. So we don't anticipate that in FY27, with the caveat that if the materials aren't received by June 30th, we have to roll that into FY27, but then the budget rolls into that too. Then we haven't spent it 20, so it'll roll into that. So the timing of that will determine that. But again, that's about $4.2 million of that $8 million that we spent, that we won't have to spend going into next year. Of course, we do have adoption cycles, and so eventually we'll have to continue to take a look at things like math and our other adoption cycles. But for next year, we're not anticipating an adoption for FY27. There is a large-scale project to continue to look at CECC. There is the fire marshal came and there's some remediations that need to be done, and unfortunately, it's a pretty extensive project to take a look at. So we'll have to determine what that looks like. But the cost right now is about $500,000. But we'll continue to have conversations before we pull the trigger on that with that. But that was just something that I in the back of my mind as I'm budgeting, just want to make sure we have set in the budget. And then software increases, unfortunately, just with anything, software licenses and those types of things that we utilize, we tend to see an increase in some of those. So I'm anticipating about $200,000 increase for all of our software licenses across the board. But that really does leave us with about a $2 million surplus in capital. It's not really like money that's like, all right, we got $2 million. What are we going to do with it? It's more for when we look at what the priorities are in terms of building repairs and those types of things. That's kind of the money we have to determine and take a look at what those priorities would be. Okay, so classroom site funds. Taking a look at classroom site funds here, this is based on prior year weighted ADM. So again, another fund it's a little bit easier to budget for because I know already what it looks like, with the exception of some state recalculations. But for the most part, we know that this is what the budget is going to be. The decrease is about 715 weighted ADM from last year, but the amount that's added per pupil increased from 842 to 883. So really, it actually almost washed out. It's about $50,000 less than what we had this year in Classroom Site Fund. Again, we get to add that interest amount. That's money earned in the bank. We get to add that to that budget, but gives about a $12.4 million for the Classroom Site Fund. We do have a pretty large carry forward in there. Again, as a reminder, the idea of the aggregate expenditure limit, it's waived for FY27, which is wonderful, but it's going to come back for FY28 to figure out what needs to be done with that. And so again, just to remind the public what that is that's the amount total when you add up all the budgets for school districts across the state. That's the most amount that you can spend on anything that's budgeted over that. If that is not waived, then we as a district have to cut that amount, whatever that percentage is, over. And the latest numbers we saw were about 15 to 18% over. We'd have to cut that not this year because it's passed, but in April of whatever year that it didn't pass for that budget year. So that's a pretty significant chunk of money. And so this is a strategic way to make sure that we have some that if that happens, that we have some additional money in there. But that leaves the additional classroom site funds, the available classroom site funds, to about $36 million, including carryover. As a reminder, we did a few things with classroom site fund for this year going into next year with regards to teacher raises. So when we take a look at the expenditures for this year, it's about $10.4 million. The salary increases that we provided to teachers for next year, we anticipate that costing about $1.6 million. Again, the increase to the RSP and psych salary schedule, we anticipate that's going to increase that budget by about $250,000, leaving a total surplus of about a little less than $2,000. So we right now looking pretty good, in a balanced budget there. And then finally, again, we're not going to go through every single fund, but I just wanted to list out some of the major funds that we have other than the ones we went over. Bond building, about $4.8 million, adjacent ways, 5.7, structural improvement, about $4 million. And then these are some of our federal grants, Title I, Title II, 3, 4. We can take a look at those amounts there. 21st Century IDEA for special education, about $3.2 million. And then we have a couple state grants that we fund, one major one being the school safety grant, which funds SROs and SSOs. And we just got word right yesterday, I think, that the state board had ultimately approved for some of our schools for 3 years, and all of our schools for at least 1 year. So we'll continue to work through that and bring that to the governing board for acceptance at a future date. Just going over a little bit, as we take a look at this, obviously, take a look at the budget for the year. The tax rates are very important, and so I do want to take a look at how the budget impacts tax rates. When we take a look at the assessed value for the district, it increased by about $12 million total. So when we add all the properties and the property values across the district, that increased by about $12 million. So the qualifying tax rate, the amount that they charge across the state on your property, the base tax, if you will, for school districts went down a little bit to about 1.5. Transportation support also went down to 0.0909. Adjacent ways, we're not asking the governing board or the community to levy any adjacent ways funds. We have money set aside, so we don't have to ask the community for that. Tax resolutions and judgments, we don't know that until the county provides us with that number in August. We don't know, what some of those are. This past year is about 0.03. We don't know that right now, but means the primary tax rate is about 1.6. DSEG, so the DSEG funding is about 1.16. The M&O override, 3.53. The bonds, 1.8. So it makes the secondary tax rate for us about 6.5, which means the total tax rate is about 8.1. As you can see, it's almost identical to the tax rate that we currently have. So really, it equates negligible, per $100 assessed value over the past year is going to be pretty even. So it's really going to be based on what the value of your property did to determine what that tax rate is. Now, the nice thing, I put this up here, and I know this is from 22, 23, but the reason I put this up here is because oftentimes when we look at assessed value, people, take a look at that tax rate and they look at oftentimes, per $100,000, what's that amount? And when we say things like it's going to be, $500 per $100,000, and they think, oh, I checked on Zillow yesterday and my house is $400,000. That means I'm going to pay $2,000 in taxes. And that's not the case. So you have your Z estimate, like what you see on Zillow. But you then have your full cash value that the assessor takes a look at. That can go up based on just the assessor, what the assessment value is. And that can go up whatever. Remember back a couple years ago, housing values were skyrocketing, and those were going up double digits almost in some cases. The limited property value, that's what you're taxed on. And the idea behind that is that can only increase by a max of 5%. And that's why you have a discrepancy between the full cash value and the limited property value, because the cash value can go up 10, 15, 20%, whereas that limited property value can go up by as a max 5%. And that's purposeful. So that way your taxes aren't shooting up when the housing values go up and things like that. So I show this because when we look at those tax rates, you are taxed on what the limited property value is. You're not taxed on what you see on Zillow. You're taxed on what that limited property value is. So I have an example here. Again, the tax rates are so similar that the examples are almost identical. But really, if you take that limited property value, what your limited property value is, they have kind of a assessment rate of 10%. So multiply your limited property value by 10%, gives you your assessed value rate. Divide that by 100 to figure out, per $100 what you're paying on. So in this case, 63.55. Multiply that by what the tax rate is, which is 8.1. So you're paying $8.1 for every $100 of assessed value. Makes your tax liability about $515 on a $63,000 limited property value house. Okay, so that's how those tax rates are calculated. Now, of course, if that's all the tax we had to pay was just to Cartwright, it'd be wonderful. And it's not, of course. I'm a taxpayer too, and it's like, man, every water district and whatever is on there, but for Cartwright, that's what that is. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions on the budget.
Okay, questions for the budget.
I do.
Ms. Garcia.
Derek, would you explain a little bit about the enrollment, going back to enrollment? I realize that I believe it was last year we had kinders. We had approximately 1,200 that were going to be enrolling. And regarding the recent, enrollment figures for the kinders that came out, I noticed that the numbers had dropped to 600.
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, that's actually pretty typical that we see in the summer. Are you taking a look at most recent enrollment for today? Good. Yeah, so it's pretty typical for the summer. Oftentimes for kinder enrollment, we'll see the spike come the week before school starts, 2 weeks before school starts. So as school gets closer, that's when we see most students for kindergarten come enroll for that. So I expect that number to go up pretty drastically.
Okay, I have another question. I mean, we do understand what vouchers mean, but would you please explain that here in this space as well as on YouTube so others can understand how exactly are vouchers paid? For example, consultants, what pot are they paid from?
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, that depends on which consultant we're talking and what the purpose of that is. They can be paid from M&O, they can be paid from a grant fund. All depends on what's that paid. The voucher is actually the processing piece. With each voucher will come multiple checks within that voucher. And so as we print those checks, that voucher number is summarizing all of those checks, if you will.
I appreciate that. So for almost a year, I've been asking for the consultants, Chavez and OJ, what do those fees look like? Why are they being paid that exorbitant amount of money every month, up to $10,000 a month? And that varies. And I think in April of last year, one of them received around $23,000 in 1 month, and the other one received about 17. So what I'm looking for everyone here and everyone on YouTube is what is the rationale? First of all, how many consultants do we have? What exactly are they doing here for Cartwright? And what does the funding look like? Could you explain?
Sure, Madam President, Board Member Garcia. So consultants, we utilize several consultants throughout the district for a variety of reasons, whether that's to support different departments, whether that's for training for teachers. There's a variety of reasons that we use consultants for, and consultants charge different fees and different amounts based on expertise. And so those, depending upon what that is, that's how we determine, if they're fitting for what we need, then and they have the expertise to do that, then that might be a consultant that we pick. With regards to funding, it all depends on, like I said, depending upon what they're consulting for, would help determine what funding source that we utilize for that.
Right, I appreciate the generalization. However, I believe that the taxpayers here, as well as here in this space, as well as on YouTube, deserve to know where their money is going because these are taxpayer monies. And so for over a year, I've been asking for this information. What kind of, I mean, who are the consultants? And I mean all of them. Who are they? What are they doing? What is the justification? And how much are they being paid? And is there a cap on services? Because as far, I mean, I've been here for as long, well, not as long as these board members. However, I do know that there is a cap on services, but I don't believe any of us know what that cap looks like, what those services look like. Would you please elaborate on that?
Sure, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, I absolutely can. So there's not really a cap on services per se. Now, there are different procurement rules depending upon how much you spend per consultant. So if you are under $10,000, those are the micro purchases and you don't really have competitive procurement there. If you're between $10,000 and $99,999, that it requires additional quotes. So you need to receive at least 3 additional quotes to do that. When you gather those quotes, you're looking at different vendors to see, what services they provide. You match up your need to what those, the vendors provide. Take a look at pricing, take a look at, experience, expertise. There's a variety of things that you look at when deciding which consultant that you utilize. And then finally, if you have a consultant that would spend over $100,000, if they're not on a cooperative contract, that's when you would be looking at a request for proposal to do that. So that would be the idea of, determine. So again, there's not really a cap per se on services. It's just the amount of money that you spend would determine how it's procured for that.
Wouldn't you agree that as elected board members here, that we would be entitled to know who the consultants are and what those fees are that are being paid to these consultants?
Madam President, Board Member Garcia, 100%. And so in the voucher, in the executive content of that, you'll see the listing of all checks that are paid. And within that are consultants, and you're able to see what, how much are paid to each of those consultants.
So considering that we are talking about consultants, would you explain why they are off and on being paid? And for example, a voucher number 1192, what is that?
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia. So voucher 1192, I don't have the exact vouchers in front of me, but if you're implying that we're hiding that voucher, that's not true. There are timing things. So either I don't want to say it doesn't exist because it could be sitting on my desk right now, whereas as they're gathering signatures and backup documentation for that vouchers, that got there to my desk later than a different voucher like 1193 or something like that. The other reason is that as you're printing vouchers are, printed several at a time depending upon, so our accounts payable department prints on Wednesdays, for example, and they print multiple vouchers, EFT vouchers, food service vouchers, expense vouchers, those types of things. As you're going through that, if somebody is printing one voucher and starts that process and somebody else starts a different process, it will actually get rid of that first voucher and start with that second voucher. So that could be what happened with 1192 as well. So there are different reasons. It's not, I understand your implication. We bring every voucher that is printed to the governing board, and we're very transparent on what we pay out on purpose. We started that process about a year ago so that the governing board was well aware of who we were paying and how much we were paying.
Well, the reason I bring up the concern is because, Derek, as you know, I've been asking for a list of consultants and vendors for over a year, and I still don't know who they are. But I really do believe that everyone here and on YouTube, all of our stakeholders deserve to know where their tax dollars are going. And with that being said, will there be a list of vendors and consultants along with what they are being paid and for what?
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, I definitely think that's something we can talk to Dr. Barantes and leadership and determine how to best share that information with the governing board.
Right. Okay, one moment. I think I have one more question. So I guess this will wait for another item that's yet to come about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. As I've mentioned before, this has been a very long year where, and I'm going to read here for because you're right. For those watching, those in the audience, we have repeatedly, for those that either have missed a meeting or have not been engaged as long as a year, but throughout the year, we found we've made many changes to our processes going back. These are not new changes. These are changes that we are responsible for as elected school board members to ensure that the tax dollars are being spent appropriately. So there were processes. We just discussed the audit. I think you were here for that meeting. The audit that identified, some discrepancies, but over the course of the year, we also identified, we've had long, extended conversations with, for example, a voucher that you're so concerned with, a voucher for $2 million that actually I caught in reviewing the agenda. So just to allow to share a little bit about that process and how that works. Nobody's trying to hide anything, but I review the agenda with items that come before me for approval. So either I or if I'm able to attend or Ms. Cantu, the vice chair, meet to review those items. And I question every single item. And if I have deeper questions, financial questions, I want to know what that voucher was for. Why is it that I never saw it on an agenda? We expended about over a year ago over $200 million that included our regular budget that we're discussing now, including bond money, for items that had not been approved by the board in the millions. We are still paying two more millions for issues that we're facing for a building that we invested $4 million into. The project was going to be $8 million. If we're looking at a voucher that consists for the concern has been for a consultant, I'd like to share a little bit more as to why, the rationale as to why we need consultants. Sometimes, especially with you brought it up yourself, the severe decline in enrollment that's taking place, not only impacting our school district, but the rest of the state, the rest of the nation. But here, we might hire consultants that have expertise and background knowledge, for example, in enrollment forecasting, school consolidation and facilities trainings, financial plannings, community engagement. We found we don't have we haven't had for the last several years a parental engagement component. We have not divvied up the budget accordingly to the vision of the board. So that's why if that expertise goes above and beyond the general work, I want to say coursework, but the work of of our executive team or that of the district office, then we find the need from time to time. As you may know, in the past, we hired consultants that didn't need board approval and regarding school board policy. What is it, Copper State, for $20,000, and we didn't require any work for it. We expended gift of public funds in the amount of $38,000 and $31,000. We're putting systems in place that really have already been there, but we hadn't been executing. We hadn't been adhering to. We're elected to ensure that we're expending the taxpayer dollars to the best of our capacity. So we're talking conversations in the millions. So we have been very transparent. I want to say that between last January, May, beginning February, March, April, May of 25 to 26, every single meeting has consisted of either a reporting back regarding the adherence to our board policy regarding procurement practices, the many changes, 6 years of changes in procurement practices. It goes on. Right now, I believe we're still facing financial impacts for decisions that were made and we still have to expend because they were done in haste or rushed. There's too many to mention, but that is a need. We will find the need for consultants that we will use from time to time. Is there? I don't understand why there would be such a concern for a consultant that we're hiring that might be impacting. If it was impacting the school district, I mean, negatively, I could understand. But if anything, the amount of changes that we've made from because due to the decline in enrollment, just to name a few, have been really delving in, understanding the academic achievement of our entire student body, the 4% that we began on a year ago, and how to increase that, and also reassess our district office capacity during COVID. As you know, we had millions of dollars. We no longer have that. And this is not the first year that we've suffered decline in enrollment. So there was no way to sustain our current activity based on previous years. So we might hire a consultant to come in and help us do assessment to a plan that, or I'm going to say, topic that they might have that expertise in. Many more.
Yeah, I appreciate that, especially because now you've explained so everyone out there will understand. However, we have a fiduciary responsibility to everyone. And one of the concerns is that we shouldn't hire family and friends. Now, we know that Chavez and OJ are your friends, and they were previous employees here. So again, that is concerning because we are violating our own policy, and we know better than that. So when I ask, for example, why one of them received $27,000 in 1 month, what is the rationale? I mean, we are pretty much self-regulated. We know what we're doing. For the most part, we're still here, and we know what we're doing. So if there's a consultant or a vendor who comes here, I mean, gee, don't you think they deserve to know what the rationale is to pay someone an exorbitant amount of money? I mean, do they have an office here? They're your friends. We know that.
Ms.
So
Garcia,
that's the
and I'm going
concern
to
is
point
the
of order. I
relationship.
will not tolerate personal attacks. If we want to discuss personal friends, we could have a healthy conversation
I
where
would love
I
that.
welcome
I
you
would love
to
that
our
because they
retreat
are your
of
friends.
Friday because you've missed the last two retreats that
Some
we've
of
had.
us have jobs, Lydia, and some of us have responsibilities. So,
Let me, Ms.
and
Garcia,
in fact,
I said point of order.
you don't want me to say what you
Point
don't
of
want me,
order.
what they don't want, what
I
you
have
don't
the
want them
floor,
to hear is what you're
and
saying.
I was talking.
That's fine. That's fine. You can continue maintaining that
Yes.
stance, but you are.
Ms. Garcia, point of order. Now, you've mentioned that I have special friends. You have not responded to the $20,000 that were expended to a personal friend of the board or the hiring of their personal or their husband. There are many things that have we've brought forward and
That
have
has
discussed.
nothing to, and you know what?
And
That
and
has nothing to do with me.
I have the floor. If you want to discuss this openly, I welcome you to attend the board retreats. Otherwise, we can divulge it publicly. The millions of dollars expended only to bring our kids down to the 4% of academic achievement. Obviously, the focus had been on contracts and not academic achievement. I hope to bring my expertise and experience of over the many years to ensure that we are being transparent. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think there's been a superintendent here that has not been very happy that I make the time and ask the questions. And it takes a lot of time for them to respond. And if it's not responded to and I don't get a clear answer, it does not come on the agenda. I would hope. I am trying to rebuild that trust and processes to ensure that we're doing our fiduciary best responsibility moving forward. Having
Okay.
said that, are there any further questions regarding the presentation and our budget? Considering that we're suffering a severe decline in enrollment again.
You brought up the retreat on Friday, and I understand that I do have to work. However, knowing that, I did look them up, and I do know that they are relatives to Consuelo, your partner over at the legislature. Again, you want to be transparent. That's exactly what I want to be. But with that, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia, for your most positive. When I'm out here, when I'm out in the community and in my professional capacity, I am looking for the best practices, the expertise, the best facilitator, the best capacity to meet our needs. And we have several issues that we need to address, including our lack of adherence to our board policy stemming from not only the protocols, our roles, understanding after so many years, the agenda, how we are posting, not posting, when our discussions are, when we're not, so that we come across to our community as applying our best due diligence and professionalism instead of attacking. Very simple. If we address the agenda and ensure that we're getting our questions answered by attending the retreats, by attending our meetings that we have, because I'm investing maybe 2, 4, 6 meetings a month to ensure that I'm making sure that I'm applying my due diligence. I ask, and my entire board, if we're truly interested in bringing up that academic achievement, ensuring that our classified staff is very well paid, because I'm going to tell you, and that's another item that I like to address. I recently did walkthroughs, and I honestly don't even know what to say. The fact that we have one custodian per site, cleaning the entire site. On 4 hours, we were able during 4 days and 5 days during that change, we were able to very well pay everybody else, but we did it on the backs of our classifieds. Asking questions and agreeing here at the dais. Oh, we care about our classifieds. Policy incites action, and unless it's on the agenda under action or in our policy written as such, they're just pretty words that are discussed. And I'm not going to stand for any additional pretty words. For the record, we're making the changes to the budget as necessary based on policy to ensure that every single staff member here, not only professionals, not only the administrators, teachers, but everybody's brought up and valued. One of our something I won't apologize for, that is part of our vision that we're going to be discussing on Friday, and taking that deeper dive is the customer appreciation, the valuing our children, valuing our families amidst the struggles, maybe a little bit more empathy in understanding what those struggles are. The economy is not looking any brighter. We're suffering decline in enrollment, and we need to understand that they are our best product. Without the product in our schools, we're going to find ourselves further cutting down and people losing jobs. I don't want us to continue that path. If we have to think creatively outside the box so that we recruit or find ourselves in a position to recruit, I want to present the most professional front, not only visually, but even at the dais. And that requires an investment in our board retreats and our meetings, in being
Right.
proactive.
I see that. I mean, we are off the agenda, but I appreciate what your feedback is. So, even speaking to our employees regarding the recent change in insurance, everything looked good for them, but in the long run, it's not good because they're going to be paying more money. So, when we talk about investing, that's, I mean, questionable. And questions that I've had regarding the agenda, I mean, who do I ask about concerns or questions? Because you won't take my calls. Mr.
Ms. Garcia,
Barantas does not return my calls, nor does he respond to my emails. So who is it that I'm supposed to speak to if I have a question or a concern?
Ms.
Could you please
Garcia,
answer that?
in a perfect world, I would be always, and over the many years, have been very gracious amidst the attacks. I am willing to engage in a very decent conversation of recommendations, suggestions. Everybody's invited to our, have been invited to our board retreats, but I refuse to allow myself to tolerate a level of, I don't even know, of vulgarity. I don't need to be attacked consistently to address an item
You
on the
keep saying
agenda.
that, but who's attacking you?
Ms.
No
Ms.
one.
Garcia, you can,
You keep
anytime
saying
you're
that.
bored, go back and review the agendas. I am applying myself, diligently to ensure that we're as professional as we can. Under the circumstances, I think and it's a work in progress because I'm human too. But it's open and welcome. I have let you know that I just will not tolerate that kind of abuse. It's abusive. If you want to engage and make a recommendation proactively, I welcome you to any conversation publicly, because it's just fearful, honestly, intimidating
Yeah, well,
to
you know
be
what?
attacked in that fashion.
I feel pretty neglected too when I get the agenda the night before and there's no one I can speak to regarding questions or concerns. As an elected governing board member, just like yourselves, I believe that we are owed that level of respect, considering that we have a fiduciary responsibility to our stakeholders, to everyone here and out there in the community.
I totally
So
agree.
who will I ask? Because the only time
We
I
have
can speak
we have a
is
meeting
here.
scheduled.
This
I
this
welcome
is
you.
the
I
only
hope you can
time.
make the time because I also work and I've been
Yeah,
working for the last 6 years. And I made sure even
yeah.
when the time was changed on the agenda, and that's why I chose to operate under the same agenda that has been utilized for the last 6 years. And as you'll understand, there is a lack of opportunity here. You may know that for 6 years, I sat here and asked all the questions and was not provided, not even with an agenda. You're getting an agenda, and you have been invited to all the retreats, to all our meetings, like everybody else. I
So
just
are you
asked you said a word here. You
okay?
said something. You said that neglect. I don't feel neglected. I'm disrespected and attacked.
Ditto.
You are
Yeah.
feeling neglected.
No, well,
I
when
understand
okay,
that
let me
because I
rephrase
lived
that.
it for 6
Yeah,
years.
let me, I don't, that's history. So what I'm referring to is here, you just suggested that if I have any questions or concerns regarding an agenda, this is the only space I can bring it up, or at a retreat. Retreats are not consistent, and you've had two already.
This
So
is going to be our
are
third
you
one.
expecting as a board member that I need to wait for a retreat to ask a question, or to wait until I'm here in
This
this
is
space?
this is the
That's what
best.
I'm hearing.
We are elected to represent our to conduct professional business. We are here to meet and address the item on the agenda. We can have that discussion here. You have your questions. We will respond and provide you with the information.
So why have I waited over a year to get the requested future agenda items?
That is not accurate. I think this is your moment.
No,
This
you
is your
just
soapbox.
contradicted yourself.
Ms. Garcia, we have had, I will reiterate, that we spent the last year presenting budgets. This is our third budget proposal. It's been revised. We have spent several meetings discussing financials. We've had many reports, investigations, findings. Everything is recorded for the audience and for those watching. The only one that doesn't understand that or doesn't get that information has been yourself. But feel free to review any of the items. If you need additional help, let me know what what information you're looking for, and I can point you out to the appropriate and respective
I've
meeting.
requested a meeting with Mr. Barantes, and he has yet to respond to anything I've sent regarding a meeting, regarding information I've requested. So who then do I ask?
You understand that you more than anybody needs to understand, I hope, at this point that no board member here has more power than the other. And we need to have those conversations publicly.
That's what we're doing.
And this is where you get your your questions answered. Anything aside from here, if you're going to have a decent conversation, once, for example, I can only speak for myself. Once I see that example, I'd be more than glad and willing to sit with you, but I will not tolerate, and I will not tolerate abuse.
We are not children, Lydia, so quit taking the victim action.
No
You know what?
victim,
Hold
Ms.
on a minute.
Garcia.
No, you hold on. You are
Okay.
suggesting that I wait for meetings. I mean, you can listen, Rosa, you can listen too. You are suggesting that I wait only for a meeting and to publicize this, but what you think is that I want that information for myself. No. These are concerns and questions I've been asking, and this is for our stakeholders, for our families, information that they deserve to know. So thinking that I myself is the only one that wants the information, you are incorrect. This is for them, this is for everyone. This is called transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. And the era of coming or forcing yourself onto campus and requesting or documentation or personnel matters has ended. But I'm looking forward to working with you and seeing
I
you at
would
the
not
retreat
know, you must not
and
be talking
moving
about me
forward.
because I have
Uh,
nothing to do with that.
Point of order.
Yes.
I am moving. Are there any questions regarding the budget that we have not answered? Ms. Cantu, did you? I saw you make a motion. I don't know whether you. Yes.
We have a motion on the table?
No, no. If you
Okay.
any question regarding the presentation that we just heard over the budget.
Yes, Madam President, thank you, Dr. Barrantes, Dr. Etheridge. We have a budget of $169,000,000, $875,523, correct?
Madam President, Vice President Cantu, sorry, which
On the
which budget, which
the
which
budget
fund are we looking at?
Oh, she's looking at a different
at a different,
document.
okay. Give me the amount of the budget, the total budget that this district has that we've worked on.
It'd be 89, 90.
Uh, Madam President, Vice President Cantu, like across all funds?
Yes, please.
Probably, I don't have that exact number, but
and approximately-
generally it's probably about 180, $190 million. Yeah.
Because we had spent an hour discussing $20,000 on a voucher or consulting. And this is really devastating. Mr. Barrantes, I'm sorry we took your time to take you on walkthroughs for the schools to make sure that the vouchers that were presented, the contracts, were aligned with the work that they're supposed to do. Thank you, Dr. Etheridge, for being part of that. We also have a life, but we also responsible for our community and for our children. And that's what we need to make sure that the money is invested in the right place. It's not that I like my friend or whoever. I want people that it's an expertise in the management of a district. I want people with the experience that are able to help us move forward in our focus, which is student achievement. If that is the great problem here, I am sorry, but we need to move forward. I don't care where you want to find an issue, but I care for the children. I care for this community, and I will never do anything that it will compromise the budget of the district because I have a friend.
So you
I'm gonna do it
disregard
for the
our own
best
policy
interest
is
of the
what you're
students,
saying. You
okay?
disregard our own
And
policy.
I don't want to discuss this
Garcia,
anymore.
Point of order. She has the floor and she's speaking.
I don't want to spend more time explaining to you what it's a country, what is
You don't owe me
a
anything.
voucher.
Taxpayers.
Ms. Garcia, point of order.
Families.
This is the adherence to parliamentary procedures that we've been taught over the many, many years. I'm sorry, Ms. Cantu.
I want to thank you, Dr. Etheridge. I want to thank you, Dr. Barrantes, because I know trying to do what is right is more difficult than going the wrong direction and not questioning $2 million to whoever and $20,000-$30,000 to somebody else. I don't care because that's in the past. I'm not going to be living in the past. What we can do right now to move forward, that's what I care. but I refuse to spend hours discussing stupid questions. Thank you. That's your
Thank you,
opinion.
Ms. Cantu. Ms. Garcia? You were
I said that
interrupting. I
was
thought
her
you had a
opinion.
question.
Talking about being attacked, very unprofessional, Rosa.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. And we're moving. Now we have public comments. So we have an opportunity during this public hearing to address questions and or any questions regarding the budget and presentation that we just discussed in detail. And I do have a budget teacher staffing budget, Ms. Cecilia Moreno.
My name is Cecilia Moreno. I'm a taxpayer, a district resident, concerned citizen, and a retired high school teacher at Trevor Brown. So I take credit for some of the students that we just had many like them. At the last board meeting, Dr. Etheridge stated that an enrollment is down 300 students, and I put that down in my notes. I would like to know how many teachers resigned and how that will affect our staffing. I have heard as many as 50, but I don't know if this is actual reality. Will they be replaced with qualified teachers that understand the needs of our students? If so, how many have been hired to fill the vacancies? If you are unable to fill the vacancies, are you planning on increasing class size? What are the class sizes for K-3, class size for 4-8? Parents have contacted me, and the teachers are waiting for answers. Also, at the last board meeting, a board meeting retreat was discussed, and that a facilitator was hired. Why is that necessary? There have been no changes to the board, so why do we need a retreat? What is the cost to the district for this retreat? Why hire an outside company to facilitate? In my career, I have facilitated numerous training retreats. I would volunteer to facilitate for nothing, at no cost to the district. Why do you want to go to an outside venue when you could have it here at no cost? Once again, that would be a savings to the district. Once again, I am requesting the costs entailed for payment for 2 superintendents for the past year and a half, along with the costs of 2 administrators terminated without due process. Victoria Farrar and Dr. Grijalva.
Point of order, Ms. Moreno,
administrative instruction.
your time is up.
I have
I,
59
as
seconds.
the board president, can determine
Her time
the
is
board.
not up.
I have 59 seconds left.
Let you know at the last meeting that I would not tolerate any attacks
It is
on
our hope
any of
that
the
our
staff
Mrs.
members
Haudeke will
or
be
continued
reinstated,
lies.
since she was
Ms.
a teacher,
Moreno,
administrator,
your
and a
time
dedicated
is up.
member at the Cartwright community
Ms.
for
Moreno,
decades
your
prior to
time
being put on
is up.
without due process.
Your time is up.
I have
Please
35
step
seconds.
away from the dais.
It is the goal
We
of
are
the Cartwright
moving forward
community to
with
run
the
candidates
agenda,
that will
Ms.
restore
Moreno.
the 4-day week
Let me
Ms. Moreno,
and above
step
all,
away from
listen
the
to the
dais.
concerns and teachers and staff of the community. Dr. Barajas, it is our
Please
hope
step away.
that your acting days will be over soon. We are being vigilant.
This portion of the agenda for clarification is to ask questions regarding the current agenda item, which is a budget that we just heard in great detail. Statements made repeatedly, the false statements that have just been made are inappropriate. And Ms. Moreno, I have warned you many times. I know this is your opportunity to address to be on camera and be recorded. But for the record, Dr. Etheridge, I think I'm gonna try to go through the mess of what you just shared in terms of trying to articulate the questions. Could you please respond regarding from the perspective of the budget, I believe she had a staffing question. I know she kept referring to a previous meeting, but we're here to discuss the current budget and the expenditures, including, and so that I won't forget, um, any staffing changes proactively, because I believe you mentioned them in there, and the savings, the staffing numbers in terms of your dollars that you mentioned.
Yeah, Madam President. So, with regards to staffing, the most recent numbers that I heard is we have about 25 vacancies. About 11 of those are core classroom positions. So we have about 11 kind of core classroom teachers to hire before school starts. As a contingency plan, we have a contract today with Swing Education, which is similar to an Educational Services Inc., which we use for our substitutes, for Swing to help with long-term substitute positions to ensure we have those and we're prepared for those in the case that we need them. Some of these positions, though, as long-term substitutes, we can utilize some of our partnerships with colleges and things like that to work to get some of those certified ultimately and join our staff as a teacher to help fill some of those classroom roles as well. So that's correct with the current staffing program, the current staffing numbers that I have. With regards to budget savings or anything like that, again, the thing I would mention on that is just making sure that we're staffing to standard, understanding that we are declining enrollment. And so as we take a look at what our vacancies are, we have staffing meetings with all principals in January to go over what our projected enrollment is, and then determine then from there how many of those positions we may, have to collapse in order to ensure that our budget can be balanced and aligned.
Thank you.
Madam President, with regards to class size, there's actually an item in the agenda with an attachment that tells what the class sizes are. Kindergarten right now is 26, first through third is 28, and fourth through eighth is 33.
Will the teachers have assistants to help with the large number of students in their classes?
Madam President, Board Member Garcia, we do have kindergarten assistants that assist in the kindergarten classrooms. We also have instructional assistants that aren't necessarily within each classroom, but they can support with interventions and things like that. So a lot of principals will play around with schedules to help reduce class sizes in terms of, like in the ELA block, having another person help support through an intervention block.
What about SPED?
Madam President, Board Member Garcia, specifically, what's your question with special education?
What is the ratio with students and teacher?
It depends, Madam President, Board Member Garcia. Special ed is a little bit more challenging because special ed is individualized. So each student has an individualized education plan. So the number of minutes that they require support in varies. So it's hard to create a standard of like 1 to 10, 1 to 15, because depending upon how many minutes, I'll say speech, for example, you might have one student that needs an hour a week of speech and another student that needs 5 hours a week of speech. So it's going to vary depending upon what the needs of those students are.
So that also means we need to remain in compliance for those SPED students who are, as you mentioned, they require a certain amount of time, which brings me to my next question. If there is a shortage of teachers, how is it that we will continue to meet their goals and objectives and remain in compliance?
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, that's an excellent question. And the answer to that is not a great one, but it is something that all districts most districts across the state are experiencing. And that's the idea of contracting companies. So contracting companies similar to a Swing or an ESI who contract just substitutes day-to-day or long-term. There's contracting companies out there that will contract speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and we pay those contracting companies to send people out to service the students.
The disadvantage of using subs is the fact that these students, all of them, will not have a relationship, an acquired relationship. they will not have the trust that they need or want or require to excel. That's definitely a challenge. And I think that if we do not provide these services for these children and meet their goals and objectives as well as across the district, then we will be a disadvantage to them.
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, just to clarify, when it comes to special education and contracting companies, they're not day-to-day subs. So they are the same person that attends. It's just they're employed through the contracting company versus employed directly through the district. It is a cost. It's an increased cost, and so that's where we continue to kind of figure out retention, recruitment, those types of things, because we do know that that's a challenge, and that is actually a challenge, like I said, across the state with many other districts. And so we are definitely open to ideas. We're constantly talking about ways to recruit and retain, and definitely open to ideas, that the board may have, the public may have, on additional ways to recruit and retain our teachers.
I hear you've said a few times compared to other districts are experiencing the same challenges, and I understand that, but we're different. We're Cartwright, we're different. We can go above and beyond to make sure that these children are served academically, as well as being able to meet their, again, goals and objectives, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, Madam President, Board Member Garcia, I'm 100% in agreement. And so, like I said, any ideas that we have that we can help recruit and retain and those types of things that we haven't thought of, we are all ears, because we have the same goals in mind. We want to be 100% fully staffed with highly qualified teachers and specialists and intervention assistants and whatever the case may be. And right now with shortages, it's a struggle. So we're, again, like I said, if you or the board or the public
And
have
to that
additional
point,
ideas.
we have been engaging in ongoing conversations. And if I may, Dr. Ezra, just input that some of my questions regarding, I think we've had several situations, as you may, well, I don't think you've been here at every board meeting, but we've had several concerns and parents and issues in that department that I've requested an assessment because our role is board policy. So I want to ensure that we are staffing them adequately. We've done away with, a few years back, we did away with a recruiter that we had on site. I don't necessarily like the fact that we have so many contracts out for staffing purposes for SPED. And I want to make sure, and while we're still dealing with a lot of situations stemming from that root of the problem that we're not addressing. So we're going to continue to address it, and we're focused on that. And that's one of the items that we have and time to discuss, even moving forward in terms of our priorities, because we have to incorporate our board priorities into a strategic plan, which is a great segue to, I wanted to take an opportunity to respond as to why we need an experienced facilitator that can take us through difficult, challenging conversations. We want to be able, the location, we want to be able to have all board members be there and truly vested and, setting aside the time to invest in just the topic at hand instead of making it easy for us to walk away. But also the facilitator needs to have that experience and background. We want somebody that can be neutral, want somebody that can make better use of our leadership time, structured discussion, managing those difficult conversations as I listed, shared, encouraging broader participation, achieving all the while, I think, driving us to achieve the desired outcomes that we want to have. And we need somebody that is not just somebody that we can just pull off the street, because we want to make sure that we're strategic. Somebody that can provide an outside perspective, achieving those concrete outcomes, but also the fact that they're coming in experienced to be able to lead us, be experienced in developing strategic plans, conversations. That's some of the expertise that we currently don't have and haven't had, because we haven't had a bona fide strategic planning session in about 6-7 years. And so in that span, it's kind of gone away. It's easy to put together something in writing, say, hey, dynamic, we've got it in paper, this is our strategic plan. But in that plan, if we haven't incorporated the parents that we so value and our children, academic achievement, we've got to have it in that strategic plan
But
so we can focus on
yeah,
that.
so you just mentioned we have to include the parents. I agree 100%. They should be involved. They should be included. In fact, having these discussions should happen here, not just at a retreat, but here so that they can be involved, including the PAC meetings. My understanding is that they didn't have, for 3 months, they didn't have a PAC meeting, but they need to be included. Their voice matters. They are the liaisons for their schools and other parents. But if we continue to disregard their thoughts or what they want, I mean, how is it we're going to know what they want if they're not included?
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. And you brought up a great point. Part of this conversation is a broader conversation to see how we can best be more effective in tangibly working with our parents, and how we utilize and work with our parents. We want to make sure that we develop partnerships that are not conducive to just student walkouts, but also conducive to the academic achievement, engaging them, growing together academically as well. Those opportunities. So this is how vast. I mean, how I'm going to say how broad the conversation we're going to have so that we establish those priorities. We're going to be looking at restructuring and adding a whole parental engagement component, which we haven't had. So how can you hold me accountable for not including parents if we don't have the roadmap in the strategic plan? It's absent of that. So I want to make sure that they're in there, that it's written, and that we're not going to forget this. And every time we sit down at the dais, just like we have here, that we have our reminders of what our 3 priorities are. That's the purpose of that strategic planning session, conversation. It's not just, and I'm not even giving it the best service in just this short synopsis, because a lot of work is taking place even as we speak. We have the facilitator that's meeting with our executive team, teachers, parents, all levels, so that that's going to guide the conversation to help us establish priorities that we want to focus on so that they're reflected in the budget. So if there are needs that we're not meeting them because it's not in that priority. So I want to make sure that we're prioritizing what we just discussed, SPED. Want to make sure that we're divvying up our budget accordingly, and that we're looking and thinking outside the box about how we can provide those support services. There's a lot more to it, but that's the reason behind that. And I hope I've provided a rationale as to why we need the specialized facilitator. We've had those. This is not new to any district, and I think he's coming in. I mean, honestly, very affordably because of the relationship. We need the help to get us there. Obviously, we cannot get past a simple meeting of having a budget presentation that we can understand and sticking to that agenda. I hope that I've answered those questions. And if there are no other questions, Dr. Barrantes, did you want to mention something?
Yes, good evening, Madam President, board members, Mr. Garcia. I just want to be assured that we, as the administration, we're very aware of the stuff that we need to fill. We're very aware of the trends in enrollment, and we're committed to fill out those vacancies. But the reality is that is a daily report that I get, those 2 reports. But until we get the students and their seats, we will know how many students we're going to have, and we're going to know how many teachers that we're going to have. But I'm going to reassure to everyone who's watching, and also board members, that we're doing the best that we can to get the best teachers for our students. That's our goal, and hopefully, in August, when we have the students here, so we can talk about it, because there are a lot of strategies you have to do. Not only those outsourcing the teachers, long-term teachers substitute, but also you need to collapse classrooms if the enrollment goes down, or you need to split those kids. But it's part of the process. But we're the administration is aware of, and we're totally confident that we're gonna carry out this like any other action that we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Barrantes. I just want to ensure moving forward that we are being strategic with our priorities, are meeting our goals and objectives that we have outlined and discussed, having action plans to address. If we've identified the needs, then we can address them. If they have not been identified, then we're never going to address them. Governance agreements in terms of how we're moving forward, the buy-in and investment from all board members, again, conducive to ensuring that we're meeting all our needs. Next steps and accountability measures need to be in place. Evaluations, that of our executive team, administrators, everybody. I don't think those items have been adhered to either. I'm looking forward to working with everyone proactively and want to ensure that the facilitators and consultants that are being hired, have a very reputable background, educational background. Mr. Hernandez, I just want to take the time. Mr. Hernandez is a professor at NAU. I've seen him facilitate many conferences, statewide, nationally. Very dynamic and funny. I think funny is, hopefully his demeanor as well, welcoming, open, very, very reputable. Not a friend. I'm glad that I've had the pleasure of knowing people, but I want to, everywhere that I go, conferences, and I think Ms. Garcia knows that because we brought back a facilitator from a national conference that helped with a few workshops in the past. Somebody that was objectionable, that was outside of our even of our state, did great work. I'm looking forward to addressing all our needs because I know we can find that resolve and we can all coexist, getting our items met. Thank you. We're moving on to the next item on the agenda, and we have the I'm adjourning the public hearing. Please let the record reflect that it is 7:41, and we have the regular call to the public, of which I have none. And going on to the consent agenda, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
I second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. And I will proceed with the roll call vote. Since you seconded, Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Cantu, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Romero, how do you vote?
I will abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. And Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Once again, just to reiterate before I cast my vote, due to the non-compliance of not receiving any of the future agenda items over the last year for transparency and for the public, with that, I vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. And I vote aye. And motion carries. Dr. Barrantes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, executive team, and community. I want to congratulate, talking about new qualified people coming to our district. I want to congratulate Dr. Sarah Crawford. She's going to be our director of PLC and in school improvement. Mr. Benjamin Solins, if I say correctly, assistant director of special services. And we have some assistant principals too here. Jacob Holiday, welcome. Jason Schnee, welcome. Michael Welch, welcome. And is it Ricardo Cordova here? That's the other assistant principal. So we wanted you all welcome to our Cartwright, and we're ready, right, to roll our sleeves and work for our kids. So. Welcome.
I just want to welcome everybody. Welcome to Cartwright. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. great opportunities. I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Ms. Hernandez, if I may,
Yes.
also talking about teachers, we also hire a lot of teachers too. So we want to welcome all those teachers and staff, classified people. We are looking forward to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cantu?
Madam President, I also want to welcome everybody to Cartwright. I wish we can do great things here. We inherited a very difficult uh, situation, and this has not been easy, but we can lose focus. There are children out there that depend on us. They're the future. They deserve the best. And even our behaviors doesn't show that we care. We do. And I apologize any inconvenience you uh, or a bad uh, example you get today, but our heart is in the right place, and I hope yours as well. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu.
Madam President, I
Dr.
didn't
Hernandez.
see him. He's over there behind. Also, we want to welcome an assistant director, Kit, right? Is a classified administrator. Can you stand up? See what I saw him early.
Keith.
Kit Blazer. So welcome as our new risk manager.
Thank you. Welcome to
I
Cartwright.
apologize for that. I couldn't see you. Sorry.
Madam President, can we take a picture with the new team,
With the new
Cartwright
staff?
team?
You're welcome to come forward so we can take a photo.
It's going to get better, I promise.
Oh, Madam President, Dennis is also here, our new math specialist.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
come with us. Yeah.
Don't be shy. Not to worry. You'll be here, up here in the future. All right, so we're moving on to other action items.
Yes.
We've got the approval to adopt the 26-27 annual expenditure budget and 2027 desegregation budget. Dr. Etheridge.
Yeah, Madam President, administration requested approval to adopt the 2026-2027 annual expenditure budget and 26-27 desegregation budget as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will proceed to a roll. The motion? Do you want me to? Okay, I move that we approve to adopt the 26-27 annual expenditure budget and 2026-2027 desegregation budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I will proceed to a roll call vote. Ms. Cantu, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. And I've got two callers. Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
Madam President, I vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Jennifer Romero, how do you vote?
I will abstain.
An abstention. Thank you. And I vote aye. and motion carries. Dr. Barrantes, we've got summary of current events.
We have this couple items, number 2,
Did I?
the readings for.
Oh, the second reading, sorry. Okay, second reading. For information and adoption regarding the proposed revised policy GCCA, professional support, staff sick leave, Dr. Etheridge.
Madam President, governing board members, as a reminder, this is the second reading of GCCA, professional and support staff sick leave. The major change to this policy was that it increased the number, the maximum amount of sick time that can be accrued from 96 days to 120 days. That calculation was based on, the 96 was based on a 10-hour day. Now that we're going to a 5-day week, which is an 8-hour day, same number of hours, it's just now 120 days because it's an 8-hour day. So that's the biggest change in this one.
Okay. And this is the second reading. So I move to approve to adopt the 2026-2027 annual expenditure budget and 2026, no, sorry, wrong one. I move to adopt the proposed revised policy GCCA, professional support, staff sick leave. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu, and I will proceed with the roll. I will proceed with the roll call vote. Ms. Cantu, how do you vote?
I vote aye, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. And Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
I vote
I'm sorry, you cut off. Did you say aye? Okay. And Ms. Romero, how do you vote?
yes, right.
Okay. And Ms. Romero?
I'm sorry.
Was that an abstention?
I voted aye.
Aye. Sorry. Thank you. And I vote aye. And motion carries. Going on to a second reading as well for information and adoption regarding the proposed new policy GCGC, job sharing and professional staff positions. GCCB, professional support staff annual emergency religious leave. Dr. Etheridge.
Yeah, Madam President, governing board members. Similarly, for GCCB, the professional support staff annual emergency religious leave. So this is the annual leave that employees get in order to transition to the 5-day week. Prior policy had 8 days, which under a 4-day week was 2 weeks worth. So in order to allow staff to accrue up to 2 weeks worth, we changed that to 10 days now for this policy.
Okay. And again, this is a second reading. So I move to adopt the proposed revised policy GCCB. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. And how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. And Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Ms. Romero, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. And I vote aye. And motion carries. Now going on to the, again, second reading for information and adoption regarding the proposed new policy GCGC, which has to do with job sharing and professional staff positions.
Yeah, Madam President, governing board members, this new policy creates the opportunity for the district to teachers to engage in job sharing opportunities. So that may look like there's a classroom or a full-time position where 2 employees might take on that role. We have done this in the past. We don't currently have, I don't believe we don't currently have anybody in that situation. However, this provides some policies and regulations in order to guide that in the future if we have those arrangements.
Okay. I move to adopt the proposed new policy GCGC, job sharing and professional staff positions. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. And how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Okay. Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay. And Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. How do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And I vote aye. And motion carries. Now it's the approval of employee handbook for certified and educational support professionals for the 2026-2027 school year. I remember making changes most recent over the last few months. If you could explain those changes, Dr. Etheridge.
Yeah, Madam President, governing board members. So there were a few different changes throughout the employee handbook. Nothing that I would consider major, but we had some people from business services, HR, CEA get together, review the handbook, review some of the current policies, procedures, and we brought those to the meet and confer team for ultimate approval. A couple of those changes. First, the biggest one is just going through the handbook, making sure all of the language aligned to the 5-day work week. So there were some mentions of like Friday work days and things like that. We removed those from the handbook to align to the 5-day work week. We did clarify a little bit of representation within the meet and confer itself, added kind of a call to the public period so that if there were other employees that wanted to engage in the process, this would be an opportunity for them to share their voice as opposed to just the individual sitting around the table. We take a look at substitute coverage. In the past few years, we've provided allocations to the schools for a certain number of substitute days that teachers would get for whether it's sick days, professional days, annual days, those types of things. And then if the school ran out of those days, then they would have to find internal coverage with that. We were running into some issues with just tracking, monitoring, just ensuring that we wanted to make sure that the teachers that were there every day that were picking up maybe a split classroom or things like that were continuing to be compensated through that. So we removed that language altogether to just make it go back to kind of what we had several years ago, which was just, we do the best that we can to, through our attendance award program and things like that to ensure we have teachers there every single day. Employee work schedules, again, just took a look at lunch requirements, aligning with the 5-day work week, making sure that we had mileage reimbursement procedures for traveling staff, those types of things. We did take a look at compensation for ESPs under the current practice. If an ESP substituted for another staff member that was in a higher position, so let's say it was a lunch monitor, was going to cover the front office for that day because the admin coordinator was out. We had the practice that you'd have to do that for 3 consecutive days before you got that higher rate of pay. And we actually removed that to just say, if you're doing that job for that day, you should receive that compensation for that. So we added that to the handbook. We also made sure to add to the handbook a couple revisions regarding resignation and separation. So for example, one of those being that let's say I have vacation days or annual days or sick days, and I know, I'm going to leave the district. We wanted to make sure that we had language in there so that we couldn't say, I have 10 vacation days left. I'm just going to take the last 10 days of work off. So we removed that language to where employees can no longer, what we would call, sick themselves out with vacation days or annual days. So that was added to the handbook. And then just some general updates regarding policy, changes and things like that to make sure that they aligned with the reference the correct policy changes if there were any sort of policy changes throughout the year that we had made.
All right. Ms. Garcia?
Derek, has the board been given these handbooks to review, or has the board had access to review these employee handbooks?
Madam President, Board Member Garcia, you're talking about the 26-27
Yes.
handbook. So that's attached to the governing board packet to review that.
The hard copy?
Mhm.
Okay, where's that at? Where?
We're talking electronically.
Oh,
Oh,
you can
my
access-
apologies. My apologies. Electronically, like in the
You can access it.
access in the
so
board docs.
yeah, my computer won't do that as virus. So I would like a hard copy to review that.
Madam President, Board Member Garcia, we definitely can get to that for you.
Thank you.
In fact.
Okay,
Madam
Oh,
President,
Miss-
I have a question.
Ms. Cantu.
On page 20, we have the policy for the handbook for the,
Do you have my clip? Sorry.
staff ethics and staff conduct. Have we revamped that, or we just kept it the way it's been?
Madam President, Vice President Cantu, so we have not revamped it. The handbook language is word for word what policy GBEA is. We have not revamped it in a while. I don't know the exact date. What I will say is that we do need to continue to look at revamping some of our policies. ASBA has been, over the past year and a half or so, starting to revamp policies. And in fact, they're revamping full sections of policy. So Section A, Section B, Section C. And so we definitely are a little bit behind in revamping policies. Remember, ASBA, and we'll have another set because as the state legislature wraps up, and some of these new laws that have been passed go into policy, ASBA will integrate that into board policy that we then adopt to ensure we're aligned to statute. And so we're definitely behind with that, and that is something that we need to look at moving forward to alignment. And once that's done, we also recognize that we will have to go back to the handbook and retake a look at aligning what the new policies are to the handbook language. I don't foresee any like practices changing. It's just going to be more of ensuring, again, that we don't do what we did a couple of years ago where we have a handbook with board policy that doesn't match what the board policy is. Correct. So we're going to need to, as we approve these policies, make sure that we align and stay in alignment with that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but any of the ASBA policies there are implemented by us, we as a district, we can add to that, correct?
Madam President, Vice President Cantu, absolutely. ASBA are recommended policies, and the district governing board has the ability to add or remove certain language as long as you're not removing any sort of state statute or things like that. But yes.
Thank you, Dr. Etheridge. We look forward to revise those policies because I believe there's lots of them.
And we will be reviewing. We've been discussing that to bring us up to speed, but also reviewing previous all policies that have been changed just to get us all onto the same page. Thank you. And I was just looking at that on the agenda for action item number 5 under the public content and rationale. We do have the listed items that we are recommend or that we're changing now. The alignment with the 5-day work week, meet and confer, substitute coverage, employee work schedules, compensation, resignation and separation, general updates. They're under that rationale in the agenda. And this is also the public's able to view as well. Alrighty, so I move that we approve the employee handbook for certified and educational support professionals for the 26-27 school year. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. And how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Since I have not had a chance to review it, I vote nay.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote?
Ms. Hernandez, I vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Romero, how do you vote?
I will be abstaining.
Thank you, Ms. Romero, and I vote aye, and motion carries. Now going on to the Dr. Barrantes summary of current events.
Good evening, President Hernandez, Governing Board members, executive leadership team, and members of our career community. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Etheridge, and he and I bet his team will present information regarding an update on facilities conditions, which is, is something that we're looking at it. Dr. Etheridge.
Madam President, Governing Board members, yes, I'm actually going to turn it over to our Director of Buildings and Operations, Mr. John Muir, to provide kind of an update.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, you didn't recognize me when we walked the school sites. I'm very excited to present, and hopefully in the future I can present more moving forward. So advancing the slide. Man, so much. Oh, cool. All right. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight, a lot of them have to do with our preventative maintenance program and where we can kind of enhance it and improve our school district. Roofs, exterior walls, air conditioning, air filters, water fountains, pigeon control, storage, and custodial. And that pretty much covers that. We're going to talk about site staffing levels, and Dr. Etheridge will probably be bringing that towards the end. I'll be talking about the facilities side. But current staffing levels at our school sites, we have 1 day lead custodian, 1 night lead technician, and our sweepers are the custodians at night, and they're currently staffed by student enrollment, not square footage. So we've got a lot of them that were, as we found, they're working 4 hours a night, each of them next year. I love this picture, and when we did our walkthrough, I think you can recognize the building that our operations folks are standing in front of. But currently, my amazing staff, we have 1 locksmith, 1 carpenter, and in Cartwright, you just think with 22 school sites, we're a small city, and to have these amazing technicians, and they do everything. 1 painter for the entire district, 1 welder, 2 electricians, 3 HVAC techs that we just got this year, and they're amazing hires, very talented. 3 plumbers, 4 groundskeepers, and we think of the grounds district-wide, that's a lot of grounds for 4 of our groundskeepers. 2 general maintenance, and I have one amazing admin coordinator, Stephanie, who keeps us all in line. But I really wanted to share that photo because when we took all of the artifacts back into the Cartwright house, that was a team sport, and it was so amazing for our team to get together and put those artifacts back into that house to share with our community. So I wanted to share that moving forward. Some of our roofs, and again, I'm going to highlight some of the pictures aren't for the faint of heart, but there's areas that we can definitely improve on. So this is at our event center, amazing event center. And what the picture on the right depicts, it is a foam roof. It's an old roof. And what it does in the weather, it'll expand. So if you stand on top of the event center, a lot of those, they're blisters. And those basically those blisters are popping. So what we do as best we can as a team is we get up there and what we call it drying it in so that water will not penetrate that. But that roof, we're chasing a lot of roof leaks. Again, preventative maintenance, our goal is to get on the roof as much as possible and provide that preventative maintenance. Unfortunately, our department, we're reactive. So we're putting out fires as they're coming up, and we need to be a little bit more, hopefully more preventative so that we can avoid these before they cause damage to our buildings. This is our water chiller tower over at the event center. And honestly, the first day that I was doing site visits, the handle fell off of the access. That's the inside of it, and it's rusty. God bless our team. They do the best that they can to keep it waterproof, but that is currently cooling our event center. This is, again, roofs. We've got to do roof inspections. This was a new stall, and what it depicts is we need to do a good job of making sure that we dry in our roofs. As you can see, just as a maintenance guy, I go into Walmart and tear it apart. I can't turn it off. So you walk around and you look at that plug. That plug should have a cover on it. And it's all about training. I think we've got an amazing department, and the more we can share these things, they can go out. I call it management by walking around. And as we did, we're looking at drinking fountains, we're looking at these things, and then go back and teach them how we can fix these items. Exterior walls, this is kind of a district-wide issue. I'm going to say out loud, this is my house. This is my building. This is the annex. We have been reaching out to some local vendors to try and help us with one carpenter. He's putting out fires a lot of other places. I want to put as many resources onto my schools first, but again, I just want to share this. This is my house, and we're going to get it fixed. And I was sharing with my team today. I said we're all going to become stucco experts next week. So we will be fixing this. And again, this is just another shot of our building. HVAC and air conditioning has been a real challenge this year. I want to say that when we come back and with our students, I'm going to report this is going to be the best startup ever. We had some challenges last year. Part of it is our filter changing. We weren't caught up on our filter changing, and what this picture basically depicts is if we don't change our filters on a regular basis, the unit basically can't breathe, and it'll freeze up on us. I'm very excited that when I first got here, we had a strategic partner, a local vendor that got us caught up. Carlos Monreal with Delta Air Conditioning, and got us all caught up district wide, dated them all. And now our HVAC team and our general maintenance folks, we're on our second round. So this is an old picture, but it's something we've got to take care of our units. And I will say out loud, if we do preventative maintenance, the school facilities division will fund a lot of these units, but we have to provide proof of preventative maintenance in order to qualify for those funds. And I'm very excited to be able to this next year. I do want to reach out to Keith. I saw him, we interviewed him. I'm very excited that he's going to be a part of our team. And ask them to stick around because this is going to be a big part of us moving forward. But again, this is we've got all the filters are changing. We're on our second cycle, and we're going to continue on that. So this won't happen anymore. This is something also very alarming. As we go around town, there's a lot of pigeons, and we've been very proactive. We couldn't do it by ourselves. We had to get a disaster services actually to get up on the roof and help us. What I am excited about, we got all of this remediated, and we provided training for our site folks and for all of my operations folks from an outside vendor so that we can maintain it after this. So proper respiration, safety, wetting it down, the suits and everything. So they came out. It's probably been a month and a half ago to provide that training so that we never get to this point where our buildings are that bad with a pigeon. The annex, I kind of use that as a test ground for a lot of these things for netting. So if you come by the annex, you'll see all the whirligigs and all the things. We're trying to do as much mitigation as possible. Tomahawk, we started the netting process. And again, we only have so many individuals. So we're putting it over our solar arrays. On the second story, we had a bad pigeon problem. So we actually put netting up over that. So as time permits, we're going to get all of our school sites with the netting, the whirligigs, and all the different strategies to try to keep our pigeon from, and they cause damage to our roofs. Our sidewalks, as we walk around, it's frustrating to see that they're pigeon droppings, but our commitment to this curbside appeal, I'm a firm believer if we can get our schools to pop, our enrollment has a potential to go up because folks want to come to our schools because they look amazing. Again, this is an example of one of our roofs. We do get in, it's monsoon season coming up, so we're being very proactive about these types of roofs that are compromised. So we go in, we'll foam over them, but ultimately, I'll be honest, the roof, it needs a new roof. It has needed a new roof for quite a long time. So we're doing the best we can to maintain it. Water fountains, I'm a native. I was born and raised in Phoenix, and water's important. And I remember as a kid, we used to go around to the swamp coolers and drink off the neighbors' hoses, but water fountains are a big deal, especially where we are. And as I walk around, and again, 3 plumbers, they're absolutely amazing. Our commitment is to get every drinking fountain in the entire district functioning. The units that you see to the left, we purchased through COVID dollars. Those units are $10,000 a piece. They're sensory activated. A big shout out to my plumbing department, something a real easy fix. So instead of a $10,000 unit, they put a push button on it for $100. So every time you walk by a unit, just they're creative, because that's what it's necessity, you know. Anyways, big shout out to them. Every time they go to campus, they're cleaning the drinking fountains. The next picture is, it's pretty alarming, but again, my commitment, our commitment, and it should be, when as I walk around, the student should go up to every drinking fountain every day. There needs to be chilled water, functioning water, and it needs to be clean. So again, it's just about training. When we go onto the school sites, we're really encouraging our day custodians, our night custodians, our sweepers. Please, when you're walking by it, you know, let's take care of that. And it's a training piece, and it's a, you know, an expectation. So we are hopeful. We're not hopeful. Hope's not a strategy. We are going to have all the drinking fountains fixed before school starts. Again, getting back to pigeon control, we've all of these have been mitigated. And again, it took an outside company to come in and help us to do that, just to be safe, keep our people safe, and you know, especially our students. We don't want this in our air conditioning systems. Storage and custodial. As we walk around, as I open doors, and again, it's a training piece to where when our fire marshal comes on to each of our campuses, they open doors. This next picture is, it's just a lot of our custodial closets, and we went into a few of them. My goal is this summer, every one of the custodial closets will have soap. They'll have, you know, a custodial cart with a proper cleaning, so that we can clean our classrooms better, and get rid of all of the fire marshal violations. I'm blessed this summer. We've hired some amazing transportation folks to help us out. So we've been working on the Borman Head Start program. So we're getting all those classrooms done, and the bus driver's been helping us. And I'm going to reach out to them this next week. We're going into every custodial closet. All of our electrical closets also need to be cleaned out. If we have a fire or an issue, God forbid, we need to be able to secure those. And again, I've been fortunate enough to conduct 3 trainings this year. I'd love to do more for our site folks. Get them in, hands-on expectations. This is what we want all of our schools to look like. And as we went on our inspections, you know, we go to the Peñas, we go to the Castros. What are the secrets to make their trees and stuff look amazing? And again, share those strategies to some of the schools that we have some of our challenges with. Again, what I've kind of been sharing is the pictures. What are our action items? We need to get up on the roofs. That's half the battle. Getting on the roofs, looking at the roof drains, sealing the cracks. Walls, yeah, we need to look at it, re-stucco. HVAC, if we can just keep doing the filter changes. I'm the 3 gentlemen that I hired, they're going to the sites and they're sharing with the day folks, here's what we need to look at. Here's some of the strategies. So it's not a gotcha. It's a teachable moment for all of them. And they've been very open to all of that. Again, preventative maintenance is so important moving forward. And just to, you know, kind of a sidebar, there's 7 areas: roofing, HVAC, special systems, special equipment, plumbing, electrical, and all of those areas. There's a book that we're supposed to fill out. And I've been auditing each of the books, because a lot of them, I don't want it to be a nuisance. I want it to be real preventative maintenance, that they're on there and they're checking the box. You know, unfortunately, some of our site folks were checking boxes that don't even exist. I don't want it to be a burden. I want to prove to the state that we qualify for their SFD dollars, and I want to go after every penny that we can get. Fountains, again, we're going to get those all fixed in, and get the storage taken care of. You know, we tend to pigeonhole stuff in the schools, and we just need to clean those out. So with that, I turn it over to Dr. Etheridge. Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about staffing.
Yeah, Madam President, if I may, before we get into questions, Zai, would you mind flipping up the Excel document? Thank you, John, for that. I mean, that was a wonderful kind of overview of everything, especially, you know, John and his crew are phenomenal. And one of the things that I know it's hard to put up pictures of things like, here's the current reality, because they want to address every single thing on this campus, and they do. And part of the issue, though, is as we think about, we'll take preventative maintenance, for example. Preventative maintenance is, you know, comes second in the eyes of when there's a need for something. So a teacher needs a bookshelf moved. I will put my wife on the spot. Love you, honey, if she's watching. When she was a teacher, she had the custodian, the lead maintenance person, paint like stopping points for her first grade classroom, so the kids knew where to stop to regroup and move forward and things like that. But that pulls the custodian and the lead maintenance tech away from things like preventative maintenance. And so one thing that we want to make sure that we really drive the point home on is that we feel very strongly that we need to increase the staffing that we have in our buildings and operations and our custodial crew. So I created kind of this document here that shows our comparison for what we have budgeted for FY 26-27 compared to school years 18-19. And why I went back so far is because, one, we had COVID in the middle there, so that threw things off with, we had a couple extra custodians helping clean, but also we had students in school 4 days since 2020. So I wanted to go back to prior to that, to when we were a 5-day week, to show the levels of staffing that we had compared to what we moved down to now. So when John mentioned that we're staffed to more student enrollment versus square footage, we can see some examples of that. So every school has a lead maintenance person, and they had a lead maintenance person before. But as you can see for maintenance techs, there's the night maintenance techs, and then we had in 18-19 in the past several schools, and you look at the square footage there, those schools at, you know, 150, 120,000 square feet, they had additional allocation to help support the maintenance needs of those campuses. And then we look at custodials. We see custodial staff. We have 18 less custodians across the district than we did in 2019. And I know that, you know, the idea when we look at cost savings and we look at, you know, trying to see what standards are and things like that. But again, we have older buildings, so they need additional maintenance to help that. And I know part of the thought process before is that, well, if we have less students, less classrooms are, you know, occupied, and so we don't need as much cleaning staff because you have certain classrooms that are unoccupied. But the reality of it is you still have to get into those classrooms and maintain and dust and do all of those things to upkeep that building. And so we just wanted to make sure that you guys saw the level of staffing and make sure that we send the message that it's not a matter of laziness or incompetence or anything like that of our staff. It's just there's only so much bandwidth and so much time in the day to do these things. So when we look at, again, I'll bring preventative maintenance because it's the easiest example, is that our lead maintenance staff and maintenance techs are putting out fires, if you will, all day. There's a broken air conditioning. There's a, you know, this needs to be done. There's a cleanup in aisle 2, if you will, in a kindergarten classroom, you know, like those types of things that they're dealing with. And so some of these things that are not as urgent in the eyes of the day-to-day work are getting pushed to the back burner, but yet they are the most important when it comes to preventative maintenance and ensuring all of those things. And so our next steps, you know, John, again, has been wonderful in terms of creating systems and structures and things moving forward. But in order to ensure that those systems and structures work, we really are going to have to take a look at the staffing and determine what additional staffing might we need. Do we need to reallocate staffing in terms of, right now, the buildings and operations crew that he showed you, the 19 people are under buildings and operations, where these guys, lead maintenance, maintenance techs, custodians are under the principal. Do we need to maybe look at more of a centralized model where buildings and operations oversees them, and we have things like custodial supervisors, those types of things to oversee these? So those are ideas that we still need to play around with in terms of moving forward and what we want to do. But we just wanted to let you guys know, especially as we did walks together, that we are definitely working to create a plan to address some of those things. Security is another example of, with Keith on board, and he's hearing this, he's like, I'm already at work already? Like, come on, dude. Like, but, security, as we look at, creating security within our district, do we maybe have a double duty of a security person that's also a preventative maintenance staff? So they're not necessarily just driving around, but they're available, and in some downtime, changing air filters, checking the fire nozzles to make sure those are, those kind of ideas that we're just kind of playing around with in terms of how do we create a program where, again, as John puts these systems and structures in place, we have the staffing to back it. To ensure some of these things get mitigated, because there's definitely a lot of need around the district. And again, the buildings are only getting older, and need to continue to support some of that.
Madam President.
Ms. Cantu, you
Dr.
beat me to that fast, but go ahead. I'll wait.
Dr. Etheridge, it was devastating to see the conditions of some of the buildings and the work that we expect these custodians to do for the entire campus. Fortunately, this didn't happen this year. It's been going on for years, and that's unacceptable. But when I got to see the water fountains, those have not been like that in the last month. They've been like that for a long time. And I don't want to be a micromanagement, but I'll tell you something. There should be consequences for people not reporting that, because our kids drink from that water, and that's unacceptable. I'm the type of person that I don't care that you bring me a problem, because that's how we're going to fix it. But it was devastating for me to see this. And it's a real issue. And our kids are exposed to this kind of, it's disgusting. And I always say this, I said, I don't want for others what I don't want for my own. And I will stay firm on that. But if something like that happened, I mean, we have no control of the pigeons. We have no control of the air condition. But this we have control. And that people has to be accountable for it, because it's unacceptable. And I know you did the walkthroughs with me, and you were in shock just the way we were, but we have to say something about it. Pictures is okay, but when you see it personally, to me it's unacceptable. So
yeah, Madam President, Vice President Cantu, I couldn't agree more. And what I want to add to that, though, is I would imagine that 100% there are as employees, as leaders, we need to make sure that people are held accountable to the standards and things like that. But I would imagine that a lot of even the custodians and the maintenance techs and all of those are feeling the same way you are, feeling the same way of defeated in terms of, man, I'm working my tail off here, but I just can't get to everything. I just can't do it. And I'm sure they see these things and think to themselves, this is unacceptable. We have to do something about that. And that's why I think we really talking to John is how can we get some additional support there to do that. And it's comprehensive, right? It's not just here you guys, here's 20 additional custodians. That's not going to solve the problem either. Training needs to happen. Again, making sure structures and systems are in place. All of those things have to happen to ensure a comprehensive, thing. But again, like I said, if you don't have both, if you don't have systems, it doesn't matter how many people I hire, it's not going to get fixed. If I have systems, but I don't hire the staff to work within those systems, it's not going to work either. You need that comprehensive system. And I think that that's one thing that we want to make sure that that's the message that we come today, is that there's a lot of things, making sure people are held accountable to that, making sure people are trained, making sure people have the resources, making sure we have the staff. All of those things need to come up with the plan as we move forward in buildings and operations.
And thank you, Dr. Etheridge, for taking the time. And we know at the end of the day, we were all sweating and tired and exhausted, but also the lady who was doing the floors, a lady my age, doing the floors. It broke my heart to see a lady my age moving the machine to make the floors look
The polishing.
polishing. I don't know if I'm biased about older people like myself, but that's unacceptable. I mean, and she did such a good job.
Yeah, Madam President, Vice President Cantu, that's what I was going to say. I like it was spectacular in there. And again, I would say, the people that I talk to, the people that interact with, like her, she takes pride in that. Like, I don't think she looks at it as I think she takes pride in that. And that's why we want to make sure that we can provide that support to her, so that it's not, deflating when she polishes the floor and turns around and there's a hole in the wall, or something that takes away from the work that she's doing. Because again, with her, as we continue these walks, there are going to be several other stories similar to hers. We have wonderful people that work in our schools.
We still more schools to visit.
Yeah.
So I think that this was a great presentation, even though I don't like it. But my first thought when I started to see this is that, okay, so why our kids are going to the new charter schools? So we have a problem that we have not addressed in many, many years.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu, which I'm anxious to share. This is part of the process. What happens when, I sit down with the superintendent and review an agenda, and items come across that either I question or ask for additional information regarding the HVAC, the contracts, because they have preventative maintenance, and we bought spanking new HVACs for the entire district and spent millions of dollars, and maintenance was in there in that package. So those are the kinds of things that we need, that I am looking for, because we're going to be replacing. It's so easy to just spend all these, millions of dollars to address the HVACs, but we're not maintaining it. And when the board members, Ms. Cantu, was asking questions about the maintenance, how many were installed, where are they, we couldn't produce the numbers. We weren't keeping the data. So how are we going to hold you accountable? All those questions come across in doing our diligence, not micromanaging. This is what we're responsible for, and getting those answers. When we visited those sites, yes, just unacceptable. But there's also integral infrastructural issues that we have to address. And let's be real. I mean, the one custodian is the tip of the iceberg, but how we have them set up by site is that they're under the principal. So how can the principal be responsible for training the one custodian that they have and then one in the evening? It doesn't make sense. But those are the issues that we have brought forward, that we were asking questions about. Not only just the number, but no wonder when I go to the super, or I go to the supermarket, that I'm running into our custodians. They're always upset. They're angry. They're being honest. They suffer from a lot of nerve damage and arthritis. We went from 6 hours part time to 4 hours, and you've got to do the entire site. Too much. It's an expectation they're not going to fulfill. Now, could we go back? Because I asked about how the supervision, what happens. There's supplies that they need, as you highlighted. We saw an example of a cart that didn't have the appropriate cleaning stuff. We got to create it. I know that I had a staff that mentioned that worked in food service. They had lasagna. They didn't have the little pie cutting tool. I mean, she just ran to Dollar Tree to get one. But this is millions of dollar contracts. So the expectation is that we're scrutinizing getting the best bang for our buck, and investing the dollars where we need to. And we're talking about that product that we value. This is not valuing our product. These are the parents of our kids. These are our families. We're going to go back and we're going to apply that due diligence, and we're going to be looking, and we've begun with the staffing, but we're also we're going to be exploring how we bring those, maybe it's assessing, but also reforming how the responsibility to the site, which is the principals. I think it's a disservice to the principals to not to have an expectation of, make sure we're I think I wrote my notes here that the curbside appeal, everything, the paint, everything is up to speed and looks beautiful, but yet the focus is academic achievement. We're never going to get there. So we're going to be restructuring moving forward, but that's part of the conversation of priorities and addressing what has been going on. And I'm not blaming, to say we tried, probably at the time it was the best fit, but right now it's just really unacceptable and a disservice to all involved. So I look forward to restructuring, reforming, bringing again, divvying up that budget accordingly to meet the needs of our families, our children. We're expecting the best performance from our kids. And if you go back to that water fountain, are we really going to do that with that condition at the sites? Parental engagement component that we don't have, that we're going to intentionally build and incorporate. I saw the rooms. There are, I don't know how many year-old stains in those walls. It looks like a closet. Is that? But again, we didn't have one, so we're looking forward to being intentional. Thank you so much for your patience and going with us. And I know this is something that you've identified throughout. I ask everybody, we ask staff, please come forward if you have needs. You're needing paint, you're needing supplies. That's not far-fetched. That's what we're here for. And hearing, just like supplies, classroom supplies, it's unacceptable to hear, or even in staffing, we don't have the staff. No, it's unacceptable. We're going to have to resolve or solve those issues. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me in that.
But we
May I?
open, Madam President, we opened the Pandora box, I think, by looking at this type of issues, but our kids cannot be exposed to that. We need to act as soon as possible. Thank you, Dr. Barrantes, for your time, and Dr. Etheridge. We'll continue the walkthroughs. I know there's more issues there, but we need to address them. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
And Ms. Garcia, you had a question?
Yeah, not really a question, but considering the walkthroughs, I believe it would be a great idea to include the board or invite the board to participate on those walkthroughs, so that we can all be in the same mindset and aligned to see what you are seeing. John, what an amazing presentation. Amazing. Your energy, wonderful. Your contributions, wonderful. I was thinking about your one-man show, for example, your painter. So I'm hoping, and it seems like you may have team players going on there, which is awesome. It'll make a huge difference, as you know. And then regarding the water faucets, I had noticed that before a couple of years ago when I had gone to visit a couple of schools. Unfortunately, I didn't do a walkthrough of all the schools, but what I did notice, I did bring awareness. And one of the things, aside from what you shared, is I had noticed that several faucets were in under the sun, direct sunlight. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I had spoken to a couple of principals and I said, hey, do you really think that the kids would benefit from this? Because number one, the steel is so hot, they can't touch it. The water's going to be hot. So how can we be of service to these children, to our scholars? What can we do to make an effort so that they can drink cold water, not burn themselves, and it be clean? So thank you for bringing that forward. And then also the pigeons. What I've seen are spikes, so they can't land, which is a good thing. It seems to work elsewhere. I don't know, but it seems like you have a plan already. So I just wanted to share that. And then the HVAC, so important. That's being health conscientious. Thank you for everything.
Madam President.
This is, I just want to summarize this, just to that point, that as board members, reviewing the agenda and the constant address of I question the contracts. I ask what kind of service they're going to be providing for the amount. And I've had several contracts that I have not put through to the agenda. This was one of the examples because we tend to just approve and without the site visits, and found that many of the contracts coming through didn't necessarily need to be addressed in that fashion or the size and expectation or amount. That's something that we moving forward are going to be doing differently to ensure if we can do a cost savings at this end, that means we can use those dollars to get us the supplies, what we need. But as a board member, obviously, I think what we saw was a result of decisions that it put into place to create an infrastructure that's not conducive for it's not reasonable. That is something that the principals, on top of everything else, can manage. It's like going back, if we could picture the expectation of the custodian being responsible for all the day to day, and you're right, whatever needs are needed that same day. Same thing applies to the principals. But I ask the principals to please step forward when we, that we're having. I want us to meet the needs of that curb appeal, because if we're losing these kids. I'm going to tell you, some of these sites that I went to, I question. They look like storage rooms. That's not a place that I would want my child. So when we're making as a board making these decisions, this is why this part is important. I have so much more to say, but thank you. And this is something that came about not to keep anybody out. We didn't think we were going to see all this, but it was because reviewing the agenda and questioning. Dr. Barrantes.
Madam President, government board members, executive leadership team, and members of the community. About 9.5 years ago, I left the district. I worked here for 12 years, and I came back. I'm happy for the opportunity and appreciate it. Muchas gracias. The first thing that I'm decided to do is go and visit those sites. Just go to those routes and with Victor and Almas and Jackie, sometimes they took me around, and now I kind of feel where the school, but big surprises. Enrollment is down. Definitely the wonderful people that I met and are still here. I found out the event center, some changes, and we can talk more later. But it is concerning. It is concerning that we have high expectations. I do have high expectations, but we're putting a lot of things at the schools and the principals, and we're not providing them the tools. I want our teachers, our students, our family, our community, our administrators, all of us to be proud of where we work. We want to be people who are committed, engaged, and know that everything is taken care for us so we can do our job. So teachers can teach, students can learn, our classified people can maintain the grounds and keep everything in shape. You know, ed services in our department supporting the principals. The principals can be instructional leaders, work with the community. But I don't want principals to worry about those leaks, about those roofs, about the air condition. Can you imagine? I don't still we're moving forward, but I can't believe, when you do an investment for many, many millions of dollars and you don't see the basics. I mean, I'm not a constructor, but air conditioning is a key, the roof, the sewage. That is important. I see beautiful furniture and cafeterias, but the floor is totally damaged. So probably I would do the floor first, right? And then I would do the furniture later. Um, I have solar panels in my house. Right away, we knew, you need to cover that because we have the spinach that go under. And then if you go other places, uh, that comes with that in the maintenance and so I don't know what were the priorities in the past, but I want to ask formally here to the government board that I want our people who work in the schools to feel safe, that they're healthy, they do their work with pride, and also we do our job. And we'll keep requesting, but I don't think it's acceptable for our kids and our community to go to places that definitely, they're not safe because all those droppings, all the storage that you see over there, all the even I
Mold.
don't know molds. I don't know. Thank you for walking with us, and it just we found several things. That we knew that in fact some rooms they need repair, some they didn't. They didn't need that repair, but it is something very important. I was in shock too. Why did you calculate in the personal who's gonna serve in this district based on student enrollment when it's in 10 facilities? Because the buildings they don't get smaller, they get older, and they need more maintenance. So I'm looking forward to change this, and I wanna again reassure this and ask with all respect. We need to go back to give our principals, our teachers, our students, to do their job they need to do. I don't want a principal to be responsible for painting, or for fixing a filter, or for changing a light. We need to be very efficient with that, and so again, thank you for giving us the opportunity, and definitely um, moving forward. Muchas gracias.
And Dr. Barrantes, I I guess I don't cease to be amazed after having engineers, a lot of construction work in and around that event center, and then you go and see this. I was shocked with, I build you this great, I rebuild it, and I can't hang a display like here. But that's what the purpose of I'm just questioning, it just doesn't make sense. But what appeared to be an original $8 million, then there's an additional $2 million to fix. Now we're facing the sewage. That's the infrastructure. So you built it up, but you didn't look at the infrastructure. And those are the kinds of things that happen uh, when we act in haste. And I'm using the same words I've used all year. Those are the things that we're looking to change. Well, we'll find a resolve.
Just one more question, Madam President. Dr.
Sure.
Etheridge, what was the total investment that we made at the center?
Madam President, Vice President Cantu, I can get that number for you. I believe it was around 6 million and we got the reimbursement of 2 million. So I think we spent about 4 million.
And then the
Right.
and then the repairs for being able to hang.
Madam President, yes, and then we had a couple extra 100,000 for that.
So it's very important, and that's where I was going when I asked you about the total of the budget that we spent an hour arguing about 20,000 or 30,000, whatever. But actually, those are millions and millions of dollars, and we're here. We go back because we need to fix them. So I I'm going to question that, and I'm going to get to the bottom and what happened because if we're going to look for pennies, I mean, better off with millions, right? Thank you. I know you inherited a difficult department because it's not structured, it's not in place, and you need to build it. But I can trust you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we've got other information discussion items. Oh, you're missing the summer program. Sorry, Dr. Barrantes.
Madam President, Mr. Hernandez, and Government Board, Executive Leadership Team, and Community. Moving forward, despite of all this, we need to also look at the good and be positive, and be also thinking that we would do our work and all together. So there is a little video here that Victor and Alma and Jackie they put together for us. It kind of summarize our summer programs related to academics. Take it away, Victor.
This summer, our schools were busy with activity, and our acting superintendent, Dr. Alfredo Barrantes Santamaria, had the chance to see our students learning and growing together. Our first stop was at Raul Castro Academy of Fine Arts. The hallways were filled with the sound of musical instruments, a fantastic sign that our students were deeply engaged in the Art Summer program. Inside the art classes, teacher Charlene Lear was guiding students as they created wonderful visual pieces. Over at Frank Davidson School, we saw the kindergarten boot camp in action. Incoming students were getting a head start preparing for the first year of school and making new friends along the way.
Are we missing some letters? Julian. Are we missing some letters? Oh my goodness. Inocente. Can you say your name? Inocente.
Meanwhile, at Cartwright School, our ELL students were busy at the English language learning camp, reinforcing their language skills. The STEM program was also a hive of activity, with students recording data to control the ball movement and stop it right in the center of the classroom. At Harvard Leadership Academy, third grade students were enhancing their reading skills through the Move On When Reading program. And none of this would be possible without our amazing staff. While students were learning, our dedicated cafeteria workers at Cartwright School, Davidson, Tarver, and Raul Castro Academy of Fine Arts work nonstop. They serve over 450 meals each week to make sure every student had a nutritious meal to power their learning. All of this practice and preparation led to the big day, the final presentation in front of their loved ones. It was a moment to remember, filled with pride and accomplishment. From the arts and music to reading and STEM, it's been a summer of incredible growth. We are Cartwright. We are growing together.
I'm gonna keep on till I find it.
Madam President, this ends my report. Looking forward to the next meeting to provide more the work that we're doing at schools. So thank you.
Dr. Barrantes. And going on to the other information discussion items, we do have an update information in my update information regarding the special governing board meeting.
Yes. Oh,
Sorry, the art display.
Yeah.
Wanting to move forward too quickly in that one.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Hernandez. I'm sorry, Board President Hernandez, Superintendent Dr. Barrantes, board members, and our Cartwright community. Speaking of our summer arts program, we'd like to highlight the student art display from the summer honors program here at the district offices. They're showcasing the creativity and the talent of students from multiple schools in grades 5 through 8. The title of our artwork is Tropical Vacation, both 2D and 3D display. Students used a variety of art materials to create colorful tropical scenes, tiki sculptures, sea turtles, and flowers inspired by tropical destinations. The Summer Honors Art Program was taught by Miss Charlene Lear, art teacher at John F. Long. Great job to our students for this Summer Honors Program.
I believe that I have mentioned in the past, I'm sorry, Madam President, I didn't address you, but that we should include some of these art pieces in the event center. And because art, it's a language, and our kids express themselves with this. So I think that just the fact that you leave those memories on the wall makes them feel good about their talent, about their skills. So I know it was only me asking for that. So hopefully in the future, we look into that to make our children feel ownership of the buildings, of the campuses of the district. So not just put them in here and just take them away, but make it, you know, I don't know, help me with the idea. It was just my idea, so I'm not an expert in that, but that's just a thought for the future.
President Hernandez, Vice President Cantu, that's a wonderful idea to have our arts displayed in the event center. We will certainly look into that and maybe having it rotate as the artwork comes through as well. So thank you for the suggestion.
And invite the families to look at it. So they
Certainly, we can invite the families to definitely showcase the pride of our student work. Thank you.
Madam President and Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Cantu, Vice President and board members and executive committee. There's something that I would like to see in our community. There is a public library. There are hospitals. There are clinics that we can display. You know, the work that our kids they do, rotated around in public places, also as well. That's something that we want to do. So the art would be moving and would be in our neighborhood. Yeah, but we will take notes of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to item number 2 is regarding an upcoming special governing board meeting that we are putting together at the request of the Office of the Attorney General due to recent findings based on the investigation that we had regarding decisions made. I believe it was in the fall of 2024. It's taking this long to review agendas, items, minutes, several reports on behalf of an attorney investigative team. And the result is that we were found to be in violation of several open meeting laws because it has to do with different meetings that took place that fall. And we will be providing more information, and we're having to schedule that training yet an additional time. And we're working at scheduling that as we speak. I believe it's scheduled. What is the date?
Madam President Hernandez and Government Board Member, Executive Leadership, and members of the committee. Yeah, special Government Board meeting will be scheduled for Wednesday, July 29, this year, 5 p.m. here at the Cartwright School District Government Board room. This is a special meeting that we provide the open meeting law training for the Government Board and also our executive team in order to fulfill a requirement for the Attorney General for the open meeting law 2025/004. So there will be a special meeting on the 29 at 5 o'clock.
Okay. And I think this will be an opportunity to ask the attorneys providing the training about next steps and moving forward, because it also opens up a question for me as a legislator to look at state statute about repetitive violations and what makes that egregious, and at what point, after how many trainings, etc. I'm looking forward to that. I will be here to participate. I hope that this is something that all board members will have to participate in, because as we continue to approach the dais and make statements, false statements, the reality is that we're being held accountable by the Attorney General's office, and we'll be having yet another open meeting law violation training. All righty, moving on to any future agenda items, information, discussions regarding a future governing board meeting. And I've just made the announcement about the next regular governing board meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, August 12th at 6 p.m. at the Cartwright School District Boardroom. Special meeting governing board retreat will be held on Friday, June 26, 2026 at 8 a.m. at the START building at Westmac, 5405 North 99th Avenue. A special governing board meeting will be held on Wednesday, July 29th at 5 p.m. at the Cartwright School District Governing Boardroom. With that, I move on to adjournment. I move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. And how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Garcia, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I believe Ms. Hernandez, how do you vote on the adjournment?
I vote aye.
And I vote aye, and we are adjourned. But I do want to state before I announce the closing of this meeting that board member Jennifer Romero departed the meeting at 8:08 p.m. Please let the record reflect that it is 9:01, and we are adjourned. Thank you.